3000.
What is doing? My name is Maloney. This is the 3000 podcast. I'm joined today by an MC, a producer, someone who just rapped his ass off right then. Motley, thanks for coming, man.
Thanks for having me, Maloney.
I love it when MCs come in and they get the raps out of the way early, generally because sometimes people are a little bit stressed and a bit worried, but that wasn't you at all, man. It was very natural.
Yeah, like I was saying before, I'm a fish in water with this stuff, you know, the technology, the headphones, the music. It's been my life for as long as I can remember. So I think I'm probably got a bit anxious at the start of my career, and I would build up to things like this or radio appearances and stuff. And now I didn't even prepare. I didn't rehearse. I just hit me up and said, "Come down." I'm like, "Yeah, man, this is," and I love just being natural on stage as well. You know, there's no false bravado. You get what you see. You know, that is what it is.
Is it when you're rapping and you said some of the tracks that you've had for years, right? Is that muscle memory, or are you like, how are you zoning out? Like, how do you reach back into the banks and pull the bars out?
Some of it is muscle memory. Like the Dope Squad one, I haven't performed that. I don't even know if I've ever performed that because I always wanted to get the whole crew together before I performed it. Yeah. And then I just put it on the USB before I came and I had to listen to it and I'm like, I still remember these lyrics. This is from 2012, bro. Yeah. So it's like almost 15 years old or 13 years old. Yeah. And yeah, it must just be in there, you know?
Yeah.
And funny lyrics like that. One line leads to the next line, so I might not even be conscious of it, but when I do the bar, it triggers the next bar, yeah.
Man, we'll get to that, but just while you brought that up, that track has Briggs, Enfa, Remy, who else? Man, it's like a fucking full cast.
Briggs, Enfa, Remy, How, Sky High, 1-6.
What a cast of features.
And me, yeah. Asmarino from the Africs. I don't even know that crew. Like, yeah, there's like 8 of us on there or something. Yeah.
Crazy. Man, yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. But let's start at the beginning, man. Your journey. Obviously, you weren't born here in Melbourne, but tell us about where you grew up and how you got involved in fucking music, dude.
So I was born in Manchester, in a town called Salford, and I was into music when I was in the womb. Mm-hmm. My mum said that because my mum's big on music as well. She said anytime she was playing music, her belly would dance, you know. So that I was already tuned in, and we always had music at home. We had these big ass speakers in the home.
What kind of music was your mum playing?
Mum was really into soul and R&B, and a bit of reggae, and her partner was big on reggae and dub and dancehall, all Caribbean kind of.
Yep.
Because he's from Barbados, my dad's from Barbados. We've got a Caribbean influence.
Yep.
So it was Caribbean food, Caribbean music, Caribbean culture inside the house.
And there's a big representation of that in Manchester?
Yeah, man.
Yep.
Yeah, man. I was trying to find the black people when I came to Australia. And people would say, he's black. I'm like, no, he's Sri Lankan. Oh, but he's black. I'm like, well, he's indigenous. So I kind of get it's different, you know, because we obviously don't have an Aboriginal population in the UK, or if there is, it's like very small. Yeah. And I never came across it. So black people to me were different to black people to Australians. So definitely a very different cultural balance. And now you hear it in everybody's music from the UK. They're all talking about Roadman this and Mandem this, and you know, it's infused in British culture. That's how dominant it's become
now. But it's not like that back then.
In the 90s, it was having a little time, you know, because we've had waves of, I guess, inspiration in the UK. You know, if you think about even drum and bass, when it first came out, it was jungle music, and it was heavily influenced by roots and reggae and breakbeat as well. But even that was in the 90s or maybe late 80s, early 90s. So it's been It's been on the cusp,
Yeah.
and now it's mainstream. Now it's just everywhere, you know.
In every form of popular music in some way.
And back then, I think the prime example would have been Ali G. I don't know if you remember that character.
For sure, yeah. I've got the book up there, you know, where you pull the papers out of.
But he would have been like, what an idiot, you know what I mean? But now everyone's like Ali G. Everyone, all the white kids, all the Asian, all the Indians, that's it. That's how they talk. That's how they act. And you're like, are these kids for real? Because I haven't been there for a while. I just dip back in and out. And it's like, that's everybody now. Back then, people would have took the piss out of them. Like,
yeah.
But now it's like, that's standard.
That's just how it is.
That's just how it is. The culture just took over, and it's cool to be like that now.
Yeah. So growing up there, you've got, I'm guessing, a lot of records lying around the house, which are kind of cool, and stuff that you probably could almost pull samples from.
100%. And even if, because I'm not there now, obviously, but I have memories of that. So I dig in my internal crate and find songs from my childhood, and then I go and find it digitally or whatever, and I have this idea of bringing this song back, or even the song "Being Human." It doesn't sound like it at the start, but it's got a reggae twang inside it as well, and some of the vocals and some of the placement on the samples and stuff. And there was a song on my album When I Died, which is called When I Died, and that's just a straight reggae loop with the hip-hop drums on. So it's part of me, you know? It comes out in how I express myself.
So then your early taste of music is your mum and your stepdad playing around the house, leaving records around, you're pulling apart the records and that sort of thing, and that's how you really get into it? Making tapes with, like, boom boxes, that sort of thing?
Yeah, all right. So when I started finding my music, so that was always my parents' music.
Yep.
This is going back to the late 80s, maybe mid 80s. And my auntie had a salt and pepper tape. And that was one of my earliest memories of hearing somebody rap, because it was always reggae. And reggae has a bit of rapping and scatting and stuff and toasting. But this was just straight rap over a beat, you know? And I was listening to this tape on my Walkman, and I was like, this is so cool. It spoke to me. A lot of singing songs, whether it's country or pop or whatever, it didn't really resonate with me. I was always more into the music, but when I heard rap like that, it spoke straight to me. I could hear every syllable on every word, and it was telling me a story, and I was fixated on it. So I suppose I must have been 5 or 6 years old when I fell in love with rap music. Yeah. But it wasn't until maybe I was 14 that I had the tape player going and my old Commodore Amiga with a sampler on it, and like.
So you were using the computer to sample that early?
Yeah, but not really knowing what I was doing, because there was no YouTube or anybody to teach me at that time. So I was just figuring it out and like, oh, I can loop this. Oh, I found how to just have this beat going indefinitely, and then making there was an old TV show in the UK called Roland Rat.
I remember that. It was a little puppet dude.
Yeah. And I had a vinyl of Roland Rat, and I had a beat loop going on my computer, and I would play the vinyl at the same time, make my own remixes, record it on a cassette, and everyone in the neighborhood was like, yo, this is sick, you know? Yeah. So that's how basic it started for me. And I never had aspirations or dreams of becoming a producer or a rapper. It was just fun. It was a fun activity to do when it was miserable outside, and I had my dad's old hi-fi player and an old record player and my Commodore computer, and I hooked it just like I was helping you with this. Like, I've never seen this equipment before in my life, but I know my way around shit like that. It just naturally.
Yeah, I'm glad you were here, because it was after the group I had in yesterday, man, I'd exhausted every adapter I had just about. But so you're naturally taken to that, and I guess in the 80s, early 90s, that's a nerdy practice. Like to pull all your hi-fi stuff apart in your computer and link that up. That's nerdy stuff. That's not like cool rap shit.
Nah, not at all. And my sister will be the first one to tell you. She used to laugh at me like, "Oh, you got your little bag of wires, your bag of cable." Like, yeah, it wasn't cool, but to me, it was cool, you know.
Yeah.
I felt clever, or like I knew how to set the time on the VCR or the microwave. No, like my mum couldn't do shit. No one could do anything, and I'm just like, oh, you just press the.
Were you reading manuals, or you just sort of pick things up?
Nah, just
No, pick it up.
straight in. Yeah.
So were there other people in the area in your vicinity making music, or you thought I'm the only kid doing this when everyone else is playing football outside or whatever? I'm outside.
Yeah, that's it. I was the only one. Like people still ask me, oh, you're from Manchester, so what? You go for Manchester United? I'm like, I've never really been into football. I've never been into sports. I've just been into my music. And when I was younger, chasing ladies, that's it. Just music, really. That's been it. And I found, or I probably forced one of my friends into it with me because we used to hang out all the time. And I had some DJ turntable set up when I was probably about 16. And he used to come round. We used to just be bedroom DJs. Like, we didn't really think about taking over the world or the club scene or anything. We just loved, or at least I did. I was so passionate about it. It rubbed off on my friend.
Just hip hop then, or what, or any kind of?
It was just hip hop then. For me, it was just hip hop. Yeah, when I was 16, it was purely vinyl hip hop. That's it.
And you could source records from local record stores, or where were you getting them from?
Yeah, when we go to the city, into Manchester City, they had this record shop called Eastern Bloc, and they had this other shop, I forgot the name of it now, Vinyl Exchange. So it was a secondhand record shop, and Eastern Bloc was all the new imports. So that's where I would go. And then even HMV back in the day had an import section, and you know, you could get hold of some stuff.
Just US stuff?
Pretty much US stuff. Very, very rarely some UK stuff. UK stuff was very underground, so you'd have to go digging for it. Even in the UK, it didn't have its own shelf in HMV. You know, you wouldn't find Skinny Man or Mudfam or Jest or Chester P. Like, it was a very much London-based thing. So because I'm in Manchester, it didn't always translate up there, you know.
And Manchester's a pretty rock sort of focused place, but also has its alternative music sort of scene as well. Did it have a hip hop scene then that you're aware of? You're obviously still young.
Yeah, it did, but it was very in its infancy, and I didn't connect with it for a few years after that. So maybe I was 19, 20 when I first ventured into the open mic nights, because I wasn't even trying to be an MC. I was just a DJ, and I'd say just a DJ. DJ is a very respected occupation, but I transitioned from DJing into producing, into rapping, and then into just doing everything, you know.
Yeah. So let's put us into your bedroom setup as a 16-year-old. You're DJing. What are you playing? Man? What tracks have you got?
It would have been Craig Mack, Flavor in Your Ear.
Yes.
Would have been Method Man just dropped his solo album, so Release Your Delf, I think it was called. Just trying to think back now, because I left all my vinyl with my friend that I'm talking about. When I moved to Australia, I gave him.
Got it?
He still got all my vinyl, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But that was the era, you know,
Yeah.
95, 96, 97, when I was really getting into the vinyl collection.
And were other kids like, you're into that hip hop stuff? Were they down with it, or was that abnormal to them?
It was very niche. So even when I was 16, people got wind, because it's a small community, so they got wind that I was the DJ. I used to rock up with my turntables, amplifier, speaker boxes, the whole setup. And I was like a mobile DJ at 16 years old. I would go to community centers, and we used to call them hood rats. All the hood rats in the neighborhood would come out. They would know it's going to be a dope night because I'm spinning. So there was a community, and it was like the same community would pop up at the same little events. And then I got noticed, or somebody put a word in for me at one of the local hotels, like the Parkfield Hotel down the road. And that's when I got my first taste of getting paid to be a DJ, because other people would pay me a little bit, but it was more for the love of it and to bring the vibe to the party. But when I got a job as a DJ in a pub, that was really eye-opening for me, because it wasn't hip-hop. It was like, we got a 21st birthday coming up, and I'm only 16. So, so I was learning about club music, a bit more electro dance, and then they'd say, we got a 60th birthday. I'm like, what am I going to play for 60-year-olds? I'm 16. I have nothing in common with these people. Yeah. But the pub had its own collection of 7 inches.
Oh, wow.
So I could flick through the 7 inches that they had, and they told me, they seem to love this record, and I was just experimenting,
Yeah. But it opened your eyes.
Yeah. I've never been one to turn down a free education, especially around music. And it probably gave me a lot of ideas for the future that I wasn't even aware of then. At the time, I was like, oh, fucking this lame record. I'll play it, and they'll all get up and they'll do the dance like white people music.
But you might find some cool loops.
Yeah,
on those old sevens, man.
Exactly. And maybe I didn't appreciate it as much at the time, but it definitely gave me an education at least.
So as a 16-year-old, you're lugging your own turntables to these pubs and doing whatever gig they'll throw at you, but you're getting paid to play music. So it's a good entry into the whole scene.
And before that was even an option, at 16 years old in the UK at the time, let's say 95, you can leave school at that time. So you've got an option. Do you want to leave school, or do you want to stay in what you would consider your year 12? We considered it A level. So it means I would have stayed 2 more years in school to get my full. But I can leave at 16 and get a qualification still. And they have careers advisors telling you, with these kind of qualifications, you could go into this, or maybe you can go to technical college. And no one once said you could be a DJ with it. You could be a musician or a producer or a rapper. No one ever gave me that as an option. So to discover that, what seemed by chance or just by myself or by luck or however, like I was just loving life, being able to play music. Sure. And getting paid for it. So it opened up a lot of doors inside my mind and a lot of ideas that you don't have to follow what everyone's saying.
Yeah. Was that just a musical thing that they were skipping past, or was it all creative stuff? Like, did they say, yeah, you could be an artist, but probably not? Like, it just anything creative, they weren't really pushing anyone?
It never, ever to me became an option, even though we had music as a subject in school. We had drama. We had art, like visual art, but no one really took them seriously. It was like it never even was discussed, so it wasn't even a thought,
Yeah, and you're someone who was obviously, you had your head around computers pretty young. Like even the IT route could have been something in the mid 90s, but I guess they wouldn't have even saw that as like a career path then.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember we got a suite of, I think it was some early Apple computers. And I remember just walking past the room, and they were never used. No one used them. They were just there for show. Like they were always on the screensaver mode. They had the
pipes.
Yeah. And it was like no one even knew how to use them, But I guess even I at that time I had no use for it. It was like, what is that? What are you going to do with it? Unless you can show me how to make music on it or do something that's all I knew was word processing. And I wasn't really interested in that at the time.
Well, that's what the early computers, they was sort of sold to kids at school. Like, you can use this and it's like a new typewriter.
Yeah.
And then no one really knew. They're like, the teachers be like, you can do cool stuff. What can you do? Well, we don't really know.
Yeah. I actually took a course outside of school for video game design. Me and one of my friends, we got to draw our own character on the computer and design a very basic game. And I really enjoyed it, but I still never thought this could be a career for me. It just seemed like a hobby at the time, just something to do to stop me from getting bored.
To keep your mind active. So do you start to, in this teenage years, when you're doing your DJ gigs, you're getting paid, are you thinking about making your own music at all at this stage?
Not even. I still didn't consider it an option because it never been explicitly said. It was more like... when a kid gets a job as a paper boy, or in the UK we have the milk run where you go and deliver milk to the houses, or it was like one of those pastime jobs where you get a bit of pocket money, but it's not like this is your career now.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was scared of the mic. You know, I used to have to build up the courage to say, okay, ladies and gentlemen, the buffet is now open. So, you know, just the standard DJ announcements.
Yeah.
I actually had, I remember getting a CD that had all that on, so I could just press play and it would say, ladies and gentlemen, the buffet is now open. I'm like, yeah, now I don't even have to say shit. I could just sing. It's like, we're going to sing happy birthday, and I could just play it off the CD.
It's like an early sample pad.
Yeah, but on the disc. So
what was the turning point that gave you the confidence on the mic?
I started producing my own beats on a Sony PlayStation, on a PS1.
See, that's a lot of grime started like that as well.
Yeah.
And what was the game? What was the
It's just called Music.
Music. Was it a disc you put in?
You put a disc in, you load up the game, and then you just tap on the pad. You can load samples onto the X, one on the square, one on the circle, and you just like get it recording and punch it in. And then the first beats that I made were all right. Like, I'd never made beats before. They were quite basic, but they were all right. In fact, the Dope Squad 2 is one of those PlayStation beats.
Wow.
I made a point of going back and grabbing some of my first beats just to chuck it on there.
So you could bounce them out of the PlayStation.
I wouldn't say bounce, but
you hook the RCAs up.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Well, you knew what you're doing.
I knew what I was doing. So
it's so funny that had such an impact in the UK, because I don't hear of anywhere else around the world where people go, yeah, we used to make beats on a PlayStation.
No.
But there it seemed to, people say it a lot. They're like, that's how we started making music.
PlayStation was big in the UK. People didn't have money to go to the studio, and I guess we just figured it out, you know. It was like, we can do something with this basic technology.
Was it like that? Was it almost like that the PlayStations were in houses more than PCs were, so people gravitated, or they were just around more?
Probably.
Yeah.
They were more accessible. Like, I think PCs were very slow to take in the home. Like, I remember we got a PC maybe when I was a couple of years after that, like 17 or 18. So when I was 15, we still didn't have a PC yet, but we had a PlayStation.
So it's just the availability. And
Yeah.
then once, I guess word spreads. Once people go, where'd you make that beat? I made it on a PlayStation. Oh, I've got a PlayStation. I can do it too.
At the time, no one that I knew were making beats on the PlayStation. I thought I was just enjoying myself on a little video game and still not thinking about where it could go or what anybody else is doing. I was just enjoying my time, you know, and I made some pretty dope beats, and then I still had my turntables, so I would play the beat on the PlayStation, and then I would play it a cappella from the Wu-Tang Clan or something, and I would match them up. So it's like I was doing a live remix or a live mashup or whatever you might call it these days.
Yeah.
And that is what made me think my beats are actually okay, you know. They're not the dopest beats you've ever heard, but they're not shit. They're actually all right.
Yeah.
So
with Ghostface on it sounds good.
Exactly. And then maybe the next year, because I had a chipped PlayStation, so I never bought games. I used to just get the bootleg games on a CDR. This guy would come around with a whole bunch of discs, and I would pick 10, you know.
What are they, like £2 each?
Yeah. So I didn't have to worry about it. It doesn't come with instructions or anything, but I'll figure it out, you know. And then the next year, Music 2000 came out. So this was probably approaching the year 2000, because everything was 2000 then. Something 2000. And with that one, you could actually take a sample. So you put the game in first, you load it up, and then as you're playing, you can open the PlayStation, pull out the game, and put another disc in there, and it allows you to sample up to 10 seconds maximum. So I could take 2 seconds off this disc, and then put another one in, put 2 seconds off that disc, and it saves it all on the memory card on the PlayStation. Yeah. So then that just took it to different levels, you know.
And what were the memory cards? They were like 25 meg or something.
Not even. The OG ones were 2 and 4 meg. If you got a good one, it was 8 meg. So yeah, you had to be, and I think it pushed you to be more creative with less you know?
Well, it's like the early days of the MPC when they just had small stuff. Yeah, it just makes you be creative with what you got.
That's it. When I started doing the sample beats, one of my friends, Ashley, he wrote a rap to one of my beats, and I remember hearing him spitting on my beat, and I'm like, if he can do it, I can do it, you know.
And are you recording this? Like, so you're running through your mic, through your turntables, then how are you recording it? Because I nerd out a bit.
All right, we can get in, we can go in. So I had the PlayStation hooked up to a mini disc recorder.
Ah, yeah.
So that was the only way, when I say bounced out, that was the purest, most cleanest digital recording I could get.
That was a great platform, I think, man.
Yeah.
Like a really good one to pirate stuff, but also a great way to record shit.
So I was getting a recording on a mini disc. Then I had the beat there forever, then technically on my mini disc. Then I had another mini disc recorder. So I would play it from this mini disc, add the microphone into the mix because I had my DJ set up. And then I would record. It had to be live. You can't make any mistakes. This beat's playing, you're rapping, and the second mini disc recorder is going to record it all. And that was the most lossless way that I could engineer a recording at the time.
To keep the quality.
And there was no mixing. There was no EQing, no compression. It was just, you got to sound nice on the mic and record it the way it is.
And then, and so they're using the headphones on that. So you got to have a headphone line for. Yeah, it's almost like what we're doing before, man. It hasn't changed much. But that's super interesting, though. The mini disc that's how people are, and other people doing that, or you're just hacking it however you can.
That's just what came to my mind, you know. I didn't have a 4-track recorder. They were pretty big at the time, you know. I didn't have any studio equipment. I just had my mini disc recorder, and I had 2 of them, so I could work it out the way I worked it.
And then you've got that recording that you can go play to other people. And I guess that's how you find more MCs, and that's how you start to hear.
It was very local, very communal. It wasn't like, let's go out, because I didn't even really know any other MCs. It was just me and a friend. Me and one friend, we were into the DJing production stuff, and me and my other friend were into the rapping stuff. So I had this, that was it. That was it. And it was only when he rapped, and then I thought I could do that as well. I was very influenced by Snoop Dogg at the time, so all my shit sounded like Snoop Doggy Dogg.
Mm-hmm. 1 and 2 into the 3, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, very West Coast, you know.
But this is what, mid-90s?
Yeah.
So is there local stuff that you can look up to? Not much that's hitting you in Manchester.
Yeah, nothing much in Manchester. You'd really have to dig for it. And there probably was, but I just wasn't aware of it. I wasn't in a scene. I wasn't going to battles. I was too young to go to bars and clubs. And so it was like, it's just me and my friends, basically. Mm-hmm. Until I did go to an open mic. And it was like one of my beats that I made on the PlayStation. I gave it to the DJ. He played it. I got up on stage and I just rapped. And the whole place just stopped and turned around like, who's this guy? And that's when I felt, shit, I've got to go and write some more raps because that's the only one I've got.
They're like, let's get this dude up to do it again.
Yeah.
So was that a hip-hop open mic or just an open mic in general and you just brought your hip-hop shit?
I think it was a hip-hop open mic from memory.
So they knew what they were in for. It wasn't like you turned up to like a
random. No, it was hip-hop was the theme of the night. Maybe hip-hop and R&B. There was a bit of singing and a bit of rapping, but urban.
Yeah. No one likes that term.
Nobody likes that term.
Except the record labels. I think they invented it. So then you go, all right, well, I've got one track. It seems to be reasonably well received. I've got to go back and get that 2 megabyte memory card and start making some more tunes.
Oh, man, making beats was prolific. It was like the thing I did as soon as I got home from school or work or whatever I was doing at the time. I would just go back in my room and I wanted to just make, just not even having a goal, just because I enjoy doing it. Mm-hmm. I just loved seeing what would come next, you know?
Still with the PlayStation?
At that point, yeah, still with the PlayStation.
Sampling off the PlayStation, but so you can sample drums, you can sample vocals, you could send you could do whatever you wanted
You
within
get
10 seconds.
Within 10 seconds, yeah, something like that. And the people that made the game, I think they're called Jester Interactive, and it was another video game company called Codemasters. They got wind of what I was doing because some of my stuff actually got played on the radio. This is jumping forward a year or so. But when Sony heard about me and Jester Interactive heard about me, and they both sponsored me to go on a tour because they were doing like a video game tour. So eventually I got to go out and tour with software companies, and they put one of my songs in the new version, Music 3000 or whatever it was called. They really endorsed me, and it turned into something after that.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
And I could see that definitely happening because Sony was really pushing, this isn't a game station, it's like a interactive multimedia fucking thing. So when they've got people doing stuff that isn't playing games, they're like, yeah, take this kid and show people what you're doing. That would have been cool, man. So you got to go around Europe?
Just the UK on that one. That was when the PS2 was launching. So they gave me a free PS2, and they put me on tour with all these pop stars, you know. I can't remember who was performing at the time. So Solid Crew. They were big in the UK at the time.
21 Seconds.
Yeah. And I think like Beyoncé or somebody was there at the time, and Jamelia, all these early 2000 R&B kind of artist. But yeah, things progressed relatively quickly after my open mic endeavor, and after because there's parts of the story that I'm skipping. It's
Don't skip them. Let's get into them if you want to. Man.
All right.
Yeah.
So there was a DJ in particular at the open mic.
Where's the open mic? Tell us about the open mic.
The open mic, I think it's called Dry Bar in Manchester. It's right in the city centre.
It sounds like a boring name for a
I
bar.
know.
I want a bar where you drink, not a dry bar.
I don't know why it had that name. I'm pretty sure that's what it was called. Maybe not, but it was on that same strip anyway. And the DJ came over to me after I finished the open mic. Tejo was his name, and we're still friends to this day. I'm talking about the day we met, and we're still friends now. And he was like, "Man, do you have a DJ?" And I'm like, "No. This is my first ever endeavor, you know. Literally just got off the bus onto the stage." He's like, "I could be your DJ. We could get gigs, and we could." I'm like, "Wow, okay, cool." It just instantly network happened. And that was cool, and we did. We got together, we did rehearsals. He started practicing cuts over my beats, and I even got him in the studio a couple of times with me to put his cuts on the record. But along that journey, he would get gigs because he was gigging as a DJ in Manchester. So he would pull me up with him. And I'm pretty sure it was his idea for me to enter a competition, which is like you guys have Idol now. This is before Idol. It was called Urban Choice Awards.
Urban again.
I know. And they had this big awards ceremony for undiscovered artists in London. You need to submit songs. And I was the only person that wasn't from London. So I was the only person outside of London that was invited to come. Like I got
and
through.
You built a catalog by this stage. You got more tracks.
Yeah, by that stage I had maybe 5-6 songs.
That's a decent demo.
Yeah. And me and Tejo went down to London to perform. Got through to the finals, and didn't win, but got enough recognition for labels to notice me because there was a lot of labels in the room at the time. So we had Def Jam UK, Sony, BMG, Universal, all the big labels were all there, and they all started talking to me, wooing me, taking me out for dinner, wanting to talk to my parents, like because I was still pretty young. They wanted to invite my parents down to have chats, and things just really snowballed. I met a manager at the event, and he became my manager and put me on tour with De La Soul. That was my first real gig.
What? Your first real gig was the De La Soul in London or in Manchester?
No, it was in Manchester. Well, actually, we did a little tour. So, yeah, there was a couple of shows. So I was like, wow, things are snowballing quick. Like, as soon as I dipped my toes, things progressed very quickly. So I'm talking like my first real gig was 2002. And like I said, I only just got Music 2000 in 2000. So I'd basically been making music in my bedroom for 24 months. 2 years max, and then I was on stage with De La Soul opening up for them, and
that's amazing, man.
Yeah. I felt a little bit of an imposter as well. Like, what am I doing here? Like with these legends, but at the same time, I knew I had it in me. I knew music lived in me, and it always had, and it was finally coming to the surface and letting it out.
Did the imposter syndrome potentially come from a little bit of I'm making this with video game console?
That was definitely part of it. I remember when Jester Interactive, the company that made the game, they invited me to their offices. They wanted to do a bit of a blurb about me in the new video game. Like, this is Motley, this is where he's from, and you can find his track. It's a secret track embedded. If you get the code or if you complete a certain amount of tasks in the game, you unlock one of Motley's songs. And they wanted to have a bit of a relationship with me. And I remember them showing me around the office, this is where we design, this is where we program, this is where we do, and I was like, are you sure you got the right person? Like, what am I doing here? I just make loops. That's what I just make loops. That's all I'm doing. I'm making 4-bar loops, maybe 8 bars. I wouldn't consider myself like Elton John or, David Bowie or these great musicians. I didn't have any formal music training, and I didn't consider myself a musician. And he turned around and he's like, isn't all music like that? And it really stuck with me right now to this day. Like, I'm like, I never thought about it like that. All music is like a 4-bar loop, basically.
Yeah.
Just goes for 3 minutes, and sometimes it has a bridge or a chorus, but it's the same thing.
Every now and then someone tries to reinvent the wheel and try and make a different time signature. It doesn't really work.
So it really validated me, and then after that, I just started believing in myself more, and just thinking, fuck it, what have I got to lose anyway? Just people calling me names or saying he's not a real guy or whatever. I'm like, whatever.
Just roll with it.
Yeah.
So do you eventually venture into that actual studio and start to make music in a different capacity?
Yeah. Shortly after that, I remember going to a studio in Manchester, and not all studios are made the same. So I had no idea. I was just excited to be in a studio in a warehouse, and they decked it all out and had a live room and a mixing room. And I remember a couple of friends were there, and the engineer was having trouble doing something similar to what we just did then. And I just said, hey, why don't you try this or try that? And he's like, wow, that worked. And I had this real smug, like, I remember my friend at the time was like, look at your face. Look, just chill, man. I was like, just real proud of myself. But it was another validating moment for me. Like, even though I've never been in a studio, I know how studios work or how they should work. Logically in my mind, I know how this equipment works. It's like maybe in another life, I was a studio technician or something. It just came so
Makes
natural.
sense to you.
Yeah.
And so that real studio, is that an eye-opening sort of moment when you get into there and you think, all right, well, we've got to get off the PlayStation. If I'm going to be a real musician, like now I feel the validation, I need to start to work in these professional capacities.
It probably did, but more subconsciously, because I started believing in my music anyway, regardless. I started thinking, doesn't matter what you use. I'd been to record labels, and I told them, I said, I don't want to lie. I made this on a PlayStation, and they're like, but it sounds good though. Why would you change it? It's all about the sound. That's what the feedback I kept getting. It feels good. Don't fix it if it's not broke.
Yep.
But there was still something in me that didn't feel legit, you know?
You felt like they were demos and they felt like they were songs ready to go?
Yeah, well, that's the feeling I would get at the time until the discussions got further and further. And then they would say, why don't we put you in the studio with this producer? Or why don't we try this or try that? And then I started feeling like, so wait, at first you were saying my music's all good. And now you're saying I need to work with another producer or I need to have some singles. It's good music, but there's no singles. You need something more catchy, or you need maybe get an R&B singer on the hook. Or so when I spoke with the labels, that was another contradiction. But being in the studio by myself, what it did was it taught me that I can do this. I just need more. I just need this equipment to do it. And it inspired me to build my own PC from scratch, motherboard, hard drive, sound card, piece it all together, and then install the software, and then learn the software, and then take what I'd learned from the PlayStation and incorporate it onto this new software. And it was like starting again, but not starting from scratch, like starting a couple of steps back and then building from there.
So what program did you decide to use as your sort of DAW type?
Cubase.
Cubase, okay.
I'm still using it now.
Yeah. People tend to just pick one and they just stick with it.
Yeah, it's been since then. It's like I've looked at others. I looked at Pro Tools, looked at Logic. I haven't really dabbled with Live too much. I looked at FL, and they all do very similar stuff, but it's just a language, you know? It's like, do you speak German, French, or English? We're all communicating. We're all saying the same thing, but we're just saying it in a different language. So Cubase just spoke to me. It was very Logic, no pun intended. But it just worked. There was another one called Cakewalk as well at the time. I went through a few, but Cubase, I think probably because I could get a cracked copy of it as well on the PC. I didn't have to pay the full version, the full license. Yeah. And it just made sense to me. So I grabbed that and ran with it, and started kicking its ass, started really doing some good stuff with it quite early. And that's when I started learning about multi-track recording and learning how to layer my vocals and mix them somewhat. And it's my first album that I made was called Separated at Birth. This is 2004 or something, so 2003, 2004, shortly after that first tour with De La Soul. And I knew how to get it to a certain level, but then I'd heard about mastering, and I wanted to get my songs mastered so that it sounded as good as Dre and Snoop and Eminem at the time, and all these, like when I played theirs next to mine, there was a bit of a difference in quality. But then when I took it to the mastering studio, he was like, man, your bass is really heavy, and this is really, there's not really much I can do. You didn't leave me much headroom, because I'd mixed it as best as I could, you know? And I wasn't aware that you need to drop it down 3 decibels or whatever. And it's different if you're mastering for vinyl, or if you're mastering for radio, or if you're mastering for a CD. There's different nuances to it. And I was green, so I just pushed everything as maximum. And he told me, you know, there's not really much I can do with it. I'll put some compression on it. I'll limit all this kind of thing.
But you're learning from what he's doing there as well.
Yeah, everything's a learning curve. I've never got anything mastered, or maybe one other project mastered after that. But apart from that, I've done my own mixing and mastering just through going through those processes. And also, I remember him taking a lot of the bass out, and I was like, the bass is what drives it for me. Even I never like music when it's distorted, but driving it and having, because like I said, I grew up with a lot of reggae, and that's all bass. And it's just, it drives, the bass is the melody, and I try to incorporate that into a lot of my beats when I'm, you know, the people have always said bass lines are your strong point, bass and drums. And that's intentional. It's not a mistake. It's just because I like it that way.
So when and I guess that leaves you a little bit vulnerable when people are mastering your stuff. If you have an ear for it, they're going to do it in a way that you're probably not going to be happy with, and you're going to want to change it anyway.
I learned the hard way because I paid money, had it mastered, and I was somewhat happy with the good thing was everything was on a level. All the tracks were leveled off. So before that, one might be loud and one might be a little bit quiet. And I tried as best as I could, but I had like 15 songs on the album and skits in between. And it was an experience that I'll never forget. And I learned a lot from it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really had to lean into my voice, because this guy's a professional that's been doing it for 20 odd years, and I'm new with my first album. How am I going to come in his office in his studio and tell him you're doing it wrong. You've taken too much bass away. But I had to, like, it was so important to me that I had to say, can we have a little bit more bass, please? Just a little bit. You know, I had to voice my opinion and then thought, you know what? It was cool. It was a good experience, but I know I can do what he did. I know what it is now.
Were you happy with it when you put it out?
Yeah. In the industry, we have, or what I know is demoitis, where you're just so stuck on the demo. You've listened to it so many times that if anyone touches it or changes it, you're like, doesn't sound like the OG, like the demo. Like the demo banged, and now it's like, it's a bit thin. So it took maybe a little bit to adjust to it. And he was very clinical on frequencies and trimming this and trimming that and making it sonically work on a little radio or a big radio and things that I wasn't really aware of at that time.
That's really the mastering sort of.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
So I did take something from it, and I did. Yeah, no, I was happy with it. Yeah, I could say I was happy with it.
And then so, because you've had labels sniffing around and stuff, but then who do you do it with? That first album?
That was independent, so
you decided to not go with anybody once they were...
Well, I got dicked around a bit, you know. I had Def Jam saying they wanted to put me in studio with some producers in Liverpool, which is about an hour drive from Manchester.
In hindsight, it's not that far.
It's not that far. I mean, in the UK, everything's far away, but in Australia, everything is just what it is, you know. It's just different. But... like, I went to Liverpool, I stayed over for three or four nights, wrote, like, I'm like, this is Def Jam UK. I've got to come with my raw shit. And then I got in the studio all hyped to go hard. And the producer said, oh, we were thinking more like something a bit more R&B, you know, something a bit more like Nelly, but like pop, but like singable. And I'm like... Def Jam to me is like Method Man and Redman and like classic hip hop, LL Cool J, like all the artists that I imagine on Def Jam are not really pop artists, they're rap artists.
Was Def Jam UK going in a different direction though?
Well, I learned after the fact that the A&R man, who's a DJ as well, Semtex, he's a pretty big DJ in the UK. But he'd gotten into the ears of the producers and he was telling them, look, this guy could be the UK's Nelly. I don't know where that came from because that was never something I was trying to portray. But Nelly was big at the time.
He was big then, yeah.
And they want you to be the UK's equivalent of somebody else. Yeah. So he'd already worded up the studio before I got there. Nobody told me, so I was coming with my roughest, ruggedest shit. And they were like, maybe we could tone it back a bit, you know, maybe just be a bit softer. And I loved the guys that I was working with, and they allowed me to do one track my way at least. And then we did a couple for the label, you know, just it was quite painful, to be honest, you know.
You just weren't happy. Your artistic integrity was compromised.
Yeah. But because I was still new as well, and I was like, this is an opportunity. This is Def Jam. This is like, I've got to play the game somewhat. I can't be too stubborn. These guys are the professionals. I had this dialogue in my head, like, just go with it. But none of that ever got released. And it turned out that they were looking at signing Dizzy Rascal as well at the same time. And when they got my demo back and they got Dizzy's back, they were like, mine's just R&B and fluffy and just corny compared to what Dizzy was doing. Dizzy was like very cutting edge, very avant-garde, very, this is the new direction for UK sounds. So mine just got shelved. And I was like, that's not fair. That's not even my idea, you know? Like,
do you think he was more headstrong and just sort of said, no, this is the sound, whether you like it or not?
I think, and I'm only speculating, that he had already had a buzz with his sound, and they just saw that in London, this is what kids like now. This is what this guy's drawing a crowd.
He's already
pretty much independent before independent was a thing. Like, let's capitalize on this and do something with it while the buzz is going. Whereas I was relatively unknown still, just going on tours, opening up for artist and entering these competitions, and it was like they were trying to just pounce on everything and just see what sticks, you know.
Yeah.
So
in hindsight, it's probably for the best because you wouldn't want that to go out when you didn't want it to. And then it's just you're just not happy, man.
Exactly, and it can really leave a stain on your name, you know, like like once you've got a bad name, especially in what I found in rap, like if you're corny, you're corny. Like there's not, you can't come back from that. It's very hard to come back from that.
It's very, very few times do you ever see record labels pull off, this person is going to be our version of this. That never actually works. And they try and do it all the time.
I know.
And it never fucking works.
Stupidest idea, man.
Yeah. It's like that person's an artist because they're them. You can't just package that and put it in another country as your version.
You'll never be as good as the original. It's like there was a guy in Sydney, Lee Monroe. He used to go by the name Fig Kid.
Yeah, I remember.
And he got compared to Eminem all the time. It was like, this is Australia's Eminem, and it's like you're shooting yourself in the foot. You know, like you can't compare to the God. Like it is what it is, and it just sets you up to fail. It really does.
Yeah. Especially when it comes from a commercial standpoint. Like if that's who you model yourself on, that's fine and you can take yourself in that direction. But when labels get involved and they say you are going to be our Nelly, you're like, I don't even want to put Band-Aids on my face.
And I don't even listen to that shit. Like I listen to Wu-Tang and I listen to fucking, you know, not Nelly. When Nelly comes on, I turn it off. Like, why are you trying to make me be that? Yeah. It just didn't sit well with me at all. So you're right. It's probably for the best that it never happened. For the best.
So then what happens? You put out your independent album. You're happy with how it sounds. You've mastered it to the, you've learned a lesson there. And then what happens next, man?
Just what we call shotting it. We was just shotting it at the gigs, just selling it, passing it out. I got to tour with Dilated Peoples. Every time I had a show, I was passing CDs out. Got to tour with Nas, Nelly, actually, funnily enough.
But what Nas and Dilated Peoples, man, they're obviously two groups that you would want to look up to. Dilated, I'm guessing for sure. And then Nas at that point in time was a legend.
Nas was the first ever live show that I ever saw with the guy that I mentioned earlier, Ashley, who rapped over one of my PlayStation beats, gave me the inspiration to rap. We were both fresh out of school, 16 years old, working in a warehouse in a factory, mind-numbing work. And then the Fugees were coming over to tour, and the opening artist was Nas. And we were 16, maybe 17, and that was the first concert that I'd ever been to. Before that, I'd only ever seen them on Yo MTV Raps, and it was like, they're coming to Manchester. This is going to be epic. So we got tickets. And then maybe 5 years after that, in the very same venue in Manchester Apollo, I was the opening act for Nas. It was like, how is this even? I remember being on the front row, looking up to Nas and looking up to the Fugees, and now I'm on the stage, and Nas is about to come out. And it's like, that's
crazy, man.
It is crazy.
Did you get to meet him there?
Very, very briefly. I didn't know if I took it for arrogance at the time, or now looking back, people just want to get in their zone, especially before the show. So
they're jet lagged. He's probably flown 15 hours.
Yeah. So there's very rarely any massive stories from tour, because apart from Dilated Peoples, who I got to hang out with extensively, and Nelly asked me to buy some weed for him because he was fresh in Manchester and he knew I had the connects, and I remember getting some weed for him and the Saint Lunatics. And he came out while I was performing. He was like, the crowd are going wild for you, Motley. What are you doing out there? Like, him and all of his boys came to the side of the stage just to watch me do my thing on stage, because it was an arena tour and I was like performing to 20,000 people. And I was like 22, 23 years old. This is 2003, the year after the De La Soul tour. So everything was really ramped up really quickly.
Nelly was probably the biggest artist in the world at that sort of time, man.
Yeah.
He was huge.
Yeah, he was. And I just went out there and did it like I was meant to,
Like you're back in the pub.
Yeah.
60th birthday Nelly Stadium tour.
Yeah, I'd learned a few things very quickly. People said from the open mic night, it's rare that we can hear rappers, but actually hear every word and every syllable. You've got a very clear diction. This is what people said to me. And when people give you things like that, you're like, oh, that must be important. I have to stay on top of that. And someone else said, your timing is so impeccable. You're just sharp with it. And that stuck with me as well. So all the way through, I was thinking that's important, to be clear and to be on time. This is what people are taking from it. So I have to emphasize that more, give them more clarity, more timing, more.
So how are you lining up these big supports if you don't have the label support at this stage, early 2000s?
Basically through the manager that I got from that competition, the Urban Choice Award.
Did a good job.
He did a really good job until he started dipping his hands in and ripping me off.
Ooh.
Yeah. That was a sour lesson to learn. I got sponsorship from Sony. I got sponsorship from Codemasters and Jester Interactive. I got to tour with, like I said, Beyoncé, Kelly Rowland, Nelly, Dilated Peoples, Nas, Stereo MCs were a big UK group at the time, and the video game tour as well. And I remember asking him, so where's all the money? Like, I haven't seen any money. What's going on with the money? And he's like, oh, we had to hire the car and we had to pay for the hotels and I did the math and I'm like, yeah, but there still should be like maybe a couple of grand after that. And he disclosed, it was my son's birthday and I didn't have money, so I just borrowed a bit for that, and I borrowed a bit. I'm like, bro, you should have told me, if we would have had a discussion. We were like friends, so you can tell me. But now that you're going behind my back and just dipping in and not really replacing it, I felt like I couldn't trust him after that. So, but he did a lot of good for me as well. But it's like, what do you do? He's getting me on stage, but I can't trust him at the same time. So
yeah, so you just cut ties.
Pretty much after that, I cut ties. Yeah, and I was speaking to a lot of labels directly at that point. I'd got my name enough where I could email people, and I'm like, hey, you remember me from this? And I'm gonna be doing a gig down here, and if you want to come and check it out, like I became my own manager somewhat. And shortly after that is when I was invited to come to Australia randomly from the British Arts Council. I'd started doing youth work in 2003. So I was invited to come to a community centre in Manchester. And they said, just show them how you DJ. And I'm like, I'm not a DJ anymore. That was a long time ago.
You still had the skills.
Yeah, I did. But I said, I'm more into the producing beats and rhyming, and because they'd see me in the Manchester Evening News, like, what are you doing? Like, is this your DJ stuff? People didn't get it,
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm a rapper now. I'm a producer. And they're like, just show the kids whatever you do. They'll love it. Yeah, just
do that hippie hop thing.
Yeah. So I came down and I remember being nervous because I'd only been doing it for 3 years or something. So I still felt an imposter. Like, now I'm the teacher. Now I'm going to come and teach these kids how to do it. And I'm still learning myself. But I went down, did the workshop, showed them how I write my rhymes, played beats. The kids loved it, and they wanted, are you going to come back? I'm like, I don't know. Am I going to come back? And the youth center's like, yeah, you're going to come back. Like, these kids are usually out there stealing cars and tagging whatever, and we've never seen them sit down and pay attention for 2 hours straight. Like, this is incredible. So I started doing the youth work just once a week like that. And then a link from the youth center said, hey, Motley? We've got an invitation for him to fly to Melbourne to perform at Melbourne International Arts Festival in 2004. And I was like, what is the catch? What is it? And they're like, no, we're going to pay for your flights. We're going to pay for your hotel. You basically fly out there.
Had you been out of the UK much?
At that point, only to Europe, to Spain.
Yeah, so not that far.
Spain's an hour and a half, 2 hour flight. Yeah, Australia's 24 hours. It's like the other side of the planet, you know. Only thing I knew about Australia was home and away, neighbors. That's it. And they were going to pay for my flights, my accommodation, and I get to stay in Melbourne for a week. And I get to work with, let's say, 15, maybe 20 international artists, like world class. There's an Indian tabla player. There's a violinist, a cellist, a bassist, a pianist, and a vocalist from Africa. Like, all these people had just come from around the world and I'd never even heard of this Melbourne International Art Festival. Australia was not on my radar. Didn't know if you even had rappers out here. Like, what am I going to do in Australia?
But you would have known people that came here from Manchester. Was there people that would go to, or is that more of a London thing?
Maybe more of a London thing. It wasn't even you guys are like Narnia. Like, seriously, like, no one ever talks about going on a holiday to Australia, or it was like another planet, like a different world completely. There was one family friend who had been to Australia, and that was like a myth. Like, did she even really go? Like, what was that? Like,
you must have heard the weather was good though.
Well, only from neighbors and home and away. Like, it never.
Always, the sun's always shining.
Yeah, exactly. So at that point, I was like, yeah, all right. So I don't have to pay anything, and I get a free. I was just looking at a free holiday. I was like, basically, I don't know nobody over there, but I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna have a good time making music. Turns out, at the very same time, within a week, I got a call from the A&R from Sony Records, who I'd been in touch with. As I mentioned, I was in touch with a few different A&R record label staff, and he said, "Hey, Motley, I don't know if you remember me. It's JD from Sony Records." I'm like, "Yeah, I remember you. How's it going? Blah, blah, blah." He's like, "Yeah, I was never really in a high enough position to sign you to Sony Records, but now I've been promoted. I'm the head of the A&R department, and I've got a really amazing idea. The only thing is, I'm based in Sydney, Australia." I'm like, "What? Get the fuck out. I've just been invited to Melbourne. What crazy synchronicity is this?"
The world sort of things are aligning. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had no idea he was moving there. He was London born and bred. I hadn't heard from him for a while. And he just called me and said, "Fig Kid, we've signed Fig Kid to Sony Records." This is how I got to know about Fig Kid. He's like, "If you can do it, we've just signed this kid. If you can do a collaboration with him, that gives you the inroad. Once you do this collaboration with Fig Kid, the Australian market will know you, and I'll sign you to Sony Records. Like, I've been wanting to sign you for so long, and now I'm finally in a position." I said, "Look, I'm coming to Melbourne in about 2 months." I said, "Hook me up with this Fig Kid guy, whatever it takes. I'm there. I will do it." So he put me in touch with Fig Kid. We were chatting on MSN chat at the time. That takes me back. Or AOL chat. I don't know. One of them old school chats. And we was comparing music. And I'm like, we're not really the same, but I can work with him, and I can see something could happen.
Did they want you on a rap level or a production level or both?
At the time, rap.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they wanted you to feature with him, not produce a track for him.
Yeah, just feature with him to get my face and my voice out there.
Because they're like, he's the next big thing.
Yeah.
Right.
They were building up to releasing his. They just signed him, and they wanted to get me in straight off the bat. It's funny you asked that question, because in different circles, I'm known for different things. Like, they asked me to produce for Britney Spears at the time as well, just straight production, like.
Really?
On some Pharrell, Neptune's kind of thing. And then they asked me to be a rapper to collaborate with Fig Kid. So I said, "Look, I'm going to come to Melbourne for a week anyway. Let me see if I can adjust my flight so I can stay in Sydney for a week as well. Just make the most of the trip while I'm over there."
Did you think a week would be enough?
I didn't really think anything. I just thought, I'm getting a free trip, so I'm happy, So anyway, I flew to Melbourne, and then the plan was every day I'm going to work on new material with this motley crew, a bunch of randoms from around the world. And at the end of the week, that's the performance. Hi-Fi Bar or somewhere in the city. I can't remember exactly what it was now. This is 2004.
So that's what Max Watts became.
Is it?
Hi-Fi Bar.
There you go.
That's Hi-Fi Bar became Max Watts.
Yeah. So we were rehearsing at the Acme Center, Fed Square.
Yep. Australian Centre for the Moving Image.
Yeah. And I got to meet Elf Transporter, Vida Sunshine, and this other female called Little G. We were the 4 rappers of the group.
The urban
section, yeah. And then there was, like I said, a cellist and a bass, pianist, tabla. There was a whole orchestra, basically, of world musicians, and it was pretty dope. But every day we would work on new material. It's like, don't bring any of your old material. We're going to work on something new every day. Fully collaborative, yeah.
That's really cool, man.
It was
different
cool.
To making it at home by yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I felt another level of imposter because I'm like, these guys are classically trained musicians, can read music. They'll say, what note is that in? What time signature is that? And then you just pick it up and just start jamming straight away. I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about. I know how to spit bars. That's it, you know?
Yeah.
But it worked well. I wasn't on every single track, which was a relief as well, because it's like, it's hard enough learning your own song within a week. So having to learn 4 or 5 songs that you're only just created and then perform them at the end of the week was a challenge. But I felt like it was good to rise to the challenge though as well, you know.
And you guys pulled it off at the end?
Yeah, we pulled it off.
Props to whoever put that together, because that's quite a big thing to get that many people, bring them all together and actually have something that's cohesive at the end of it.
It sold out. It was a really good show. We did really well. We were all proud of ourselves. And then after that, I flew to Sydney to finally meet this Fig Kid character that I'd been chatting to on MSN. And yeah, we clicked on a personal level. We had fun. Like, he showed me around the clubs in Sydney. It was a different vibe. It was a new part of Australia than I'd never seen before. Everything was brand new. We went out clubbing and chasing women and drinking, and we never got in the studio. We just never. We tried to sit down and write a song, and it never happened. And it was like, let's just be homies. Hey, we're just friends. Like, the music's not really working the way we hoped, but we can still be friends. And I left a big chunk of my CDs with beats, and because he was connected around the Sydney scene. And that's how I ended up getting in touch with Bliss N Eso. So they copped one of my beat CDs. So it was like a show reel of beats. And they wanted me to produce the whole album at first. They were like, we love all these beats.
So he passed it directly to them, you think? Or it made its way around through a few sets of hands? I've got a big B in here.
From my understanding, he passed it directly to them. Like, he was well connected in the hip hop scene, the club scene, and the live circuit. So I'll have to double check with him, but I'm pretty sure they'd already released Flowers in the Pavement on Obese, and they were transitioning to Mushroom. What is it called?
Kadinsky's label.
Yeah. Elusive. So they were on a new vibe, new budget, new label, and they were looking for something to elevate the production and everything. So he actually handed it directly to them from memory. But it wasn't until I got back home, because I was only in Sydney for maybe 10 days. When I got back home, I got an email from Jonathan from Bliss, and he was like, look, man, we got this CD. We want to use nearly all of the beats on this CD. I'm like, okay. I'd just been asked to produce for Britney Spears at the time, and I was feeling on a level for production. I was feeling myself. I'd just been paid like £2,000 for one beat. So over here at the time, that was like $5,000, 5.5 even for one beat. When I told them that, they were like, whoa, we haven't got that kind of budget. So I'm like, look, what can you do? And they're like, look, if we took bulk like a whole bunch of your beats? Would you give us a discount? Because like we can't pay $5,000 a beat for 10 beats. That's 50 G's, and we just don't have that kind of budget. So I'm like, oh look, I could probably do $1,000 Australian money. That's a heavy discount. That's like a quarter of the price that I'm getting over here. I said, with one condition, you let me rap on one of the beats so that at least I get my name out there, and then it'll bring a bit more work. You
were
know,
going to get production credits though, but you wanted the MC.
I wanted more exposure because, like, I know not everyone reads the credits and reads like who did the beat and how can we get, like, if my name's out there, my face is out there, my raps are out there, it's just a different ball game.
And
you know?
you've been to Australia now, you like it here, so
Yeah.
you're like, I want to get back there more.
Yeah,
so that's
yeah,
your Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. And they said, look, $1,000 a beat still, if we want 10, that's going to be 10 grand, and we still haven't got that. I'm like, well, I can't go any lower than that, you know, I'm working for free if I do anything less, like. And they said, all right, well, maybe we won't take 10 beats, maybe we'll take 3 or 4 beats, and then that's pretty much the deal. We did 3 or 4, I can't remember exactly now. It's Working, Mad Tight, Party at My Place. I don't know if there was any more on the album. But yeah, I did a chunk of the album, and I rapped on the Party at My Place as well, and wrote, you know, mine and S-Hole's back and forth verse. And
so when you do they take those beats or did you have to recraft them, or they took them as they were?
They took them pretty much as they were. I think I may have given them the stems to the beats so they could
master it.
Yeah, they could arrange it. Because when I make beats, and still to this day, I make maybe 16 to 32 bars. It's not a full song. I'm not giving you a song with an intro and a chorus it's just, I make a beat and I think that's dope, and then I get bored and then I want to make another beat. Like when I'm in my zone, I might make 5 beats using the same sample, chopping it differently, playing around with it.
If they're paying you $5,000 Australian, are you going to give them an intro and outro and everything?
No.
You got to work the rest out.
Oh no! Actually, if they ask me, could you do this and could you do that? I'll do it.
Yeah.
But basically, I just give them the stems. Like it's like Lego. You build it up as you want it. You break it down as you want it. Like it's yours to do what you want with, basically.
Yeah.
You know?
It depends on the musician, but I guess some people don't think like that. They're like, no, you give it to me and we just write the lyrics to it. I guess everyone's different.
Maybe it's my own process because I know that's what it is, but I see what it could be. You know, I know the components to it. So if I want to drop it out here or just have the bass line, that's easy. I can do that. I don't have to stick with what it is. So that's the way I see it. So.
Yeah, you're giving them all the blocks. They can take some away if they want, and they can double up things here and there, but that's all the pieces you need to this jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah. Okay. Basically.
So then you record that here?
Yeah, I came back the following year in 2005 and went to Jonathan's house, to Bliss's house. I can't remember, South Sydney somewhere. He was living with his parents at the time. We recorded it in his closet. He had a booth inside his wardrobe.
So even though they're on Elusive, they don't have a big budget stuff at this stage.
Didn't
they're
seem
not
like
proven.
it. Yeah, it didn't seem like it. They might have had a promotion budget and a touring budget, but not a heavy recording studio budget, you know.
Uh-huh. But it got you back here, which you had a taste for Australia. You're like, man, I like it here. It's a good reason to come back.
And that was around the time I just toured with Dilated Peoples as well. And evidence from Dilated Peoples, he was like, man, you showed me so much love in Manchester. You know, if you're ever in LA, you just look me up and I'll hook you up. So I wanted to kill 2 birds with one stone. I wanted to travel. And the most direct way from the UK is to come through Asia and then to come to Australia. But I specifically booked my trip the other way around, to go to LA and then to Australia, around the back of the world, as I call it, the way I see it, you know.
Yeah.
So then I could touch base with Evidence again in his home turf and then come to the UK, to Australia. And the last time I was here in 2004, Fig Kid had introduced me to this young woman. So I'd been talking to her on MSN as well. So I had a few reasons, you know. I want to go and see this girl again. I want to see Evidence from Dilated Peoples. I got to go and link with Bliss N Eso. I got to make this trip happen. And also, I've heard about this really cool videographer in New Zealand called Fish and Clips. And they did this song, Mischiefs of Science, I think they were called.
Okay.
And they did this crazy video where they had huge heads and little bodies. And they were like, and I was like, that is so dope. I want to do something similar. And I got in touch with these guys. I'm like, right, I've got 3 or 4 reasons to go there now. So Bliss N Eso didn't pay for my flights, but they said, you know, next time you're over here, we're going to record this, do a clip. So it just gave me the inspiration to save for the flights, go over there. I knew I could stay with Fig Kid for free, just couch surfing and networking. And I did everything I set out to achieve. I went to LA first. Evidence introduced me to Little Brother. I don't know if you know those guys from North Carolina. What's it called now? Big Pooh and Fonte. Really dope rappers, right? Really dope. Ninth Wonder was the producer. Okay. Dope. They were all with Evidence at the time, so I got to network with him and another rapper called Defari, who was on Dr. Dre's album on the Chronic 2001. I'm like, what am I doing in this studio with these heavyweight legends? And I helped them mix the track and I helped them in the studio, and it was like this amazing experience. I was sending texts to my friend, you know, I'm in the studio with Joe Scudder and rapper Big Pooh, and he's like, no way, get the fuck out of here. I was like living the dream, you know. Evidence took me out to Korean barbecue. That's the first time I've ever had Korean barbecue. Got these memories scorched in my mind. Really looked after me. And then after that, flew to Sydney. Straight away met up with the chick that I mentioned. We had an amazing time. Straight after that, went to New Zealand to film this clip. It was just a
whirlwind.
Yeah.
Got some stamps on the passport, man.
Yeah, man. And I felt so accomplished and so achieved. And so I got to record the song with Bliss N Eso, and we did a video clip there just real quick as well. And I guess the rest is history. After that, it was being played on MTV, and it reached Triple J's top Hot 100 or whatever they call it, and set me up for a good foundation to come back again to Australia, you know?
Yeah. And so then do you think about coming here permanently at that stage?
Yeah, it's really started putting the gears in motion, because I was only 25 at the time, and I only really started 5 years ago. So like I said, it was a very quick journey. And I'd only put 1 album out in the UK. It was doing okay. It wasn't on any charts, or it wasn't selling thousands of copies, maybe hundreds, maybe. And I was just like, the UK's changing. Dizzy Rascal just dropped. Everything's going to grime now. No one really wants to hear hip hop. It's a different world. But in Australia, you guys are 10 years behind everybody. Yeah. Hip hop was still put your hands in the air. You know, it was the shit that I was vibing with. And the Bliss N Eso song was blowing up. They were telling me, yo, this song's like going crazy over here. You got to come over and do a tour with us. And like, they were emailing me and pulling me, you know, I felt the pull. So, and then because I'd met the girl as well, that was another reason. It was like, okay. So 2006, I went again. And I'm not sure if we did a tour. Maybe we did a couple of college campuses with Bliss N Eso, did a couple of gigs with the Funk Oars. And who else was on that lineup? Bliss N Eso, Funk Oars.
Was that Briggs as well?
Not Briggs. I saw something on there. Hijack and
Hijack. Oh, that's a different Hijack.
Is it? Yeah. There was a few anyway. I'm trying to remember. It's going back too long now. But yeah, no, I had a really good time. And then the girl that I was seeing, we got quite serious quite quickly. And I said, look, I'm keen to move to Sydney, actually, because that's where she was from. And I said, how can we make this work? Like, are you serious or what? Like, because I'm getting a good vibe from Australia. She was keen. I was keen. So then we applied to the Australian government and said, look, how do I become a permanent here? And they said, oh, look, you've already used your working holiday, because I didn't know what visa to apply for. I should have applied for an entertainment visa. I didn't know
That's
that
what I was thinking when you spoke. Yeah.
I applied for the wrong visa. So they said, you've already used your working holiday visa, though. You don't get a second one unless you do some farm work. And I'm like, what? You have to go work on a farm? What is that?
Bizarre, that concept, isn't it? It's so like, just, I kind of,
It's crazy, yeah. And I was like, but I'm not in Australia anymore. I remember speaking to them. I'm like, how do I get to come back and do farm work? And they was like, well, you've already used your visa, so you can't come back now. I'm like, so what is the procedure then? Like, what do I actually have to do to live there? You just tell me what I do, and then I'll do it. So I wasn't applicable for the second working holiday visa. The only thing I was eligible for is a skilled migrant or a spouse or de facto spouse. And I said, well, I've got a partner. We're in a real relationship. I can send you emails and photos. We've done some traveling together. They're like, no, you have to live together for 12 months, have a shared bank account, and it's got to be really official. I'm like, far out. So I was thinking, how are we going to do this? Because I can't even stay in Australia anymore. So I asked her, why don't you come to Manchester? You've never lived in Manchester. We could do 12 months in Manchester. Then we can prove to them that we've got joint bank account, joint living, and then I can come to Sydney.
It wouldn't be that easy now, I don't think.
Man, they really got a hold on everything. It feels like you're in a prison, you know. You can't move without the paperwork from the governor, you know. And that's what we ended up doing. She came to Manchester in 2006, but before we even did 12 months, she cheated on me in Manchester. I was wounded, and I was like, what the fudge? Because I was getting all my affairs in order to move. I'd got a shipping container, I'd got my visa, I'd got everything, and then it was like, how are you going to do this to me right now? Just as she's like, I don't think you should move to Sydney. Just not for me. I'm not committed anymore. I'm like, damn. Will you still sign the visa though? So that's what happened basically.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I guilt tripped her into signing the visa. She signed it, and then I came. I thought, fuck Sydney. I'm gonna come to Melbourne. That's where I originally came. I'm like, I don't really have any ties apart from Fig Kid and Bliss N Eso. But I had more of a community in Melbourne, and I always felt called to Melbourne. So got the visa in 2007, and then I moved here in 2008.
Uh-huh.
Then I did more touring with Bliss N Eso, and I had a friend who was here who wanted to manage me, and he put me on shows up in the snow in, what is it? What are the snowy areas?
Hotham.
Hotham,
yeah.
Yeah. All them did the mini snow festivals out there, and just never looked back after that. I've been here. I set up my youth work out here. Started reaching out to the youth centre. Said, this is what I do in the UK. I'm not sure if there's a need for it. That really worked. I was working in juvies, working in community centres, working in alternative education, and that's where I met Mono. And that's a whole other chapter that we can get into. Yeah. Because we've got the show coming up on the 18th. So
you met him doing the youth work.
Mm-hmm. So probably about 14 years ago now. Showing my age, my grey hairs. But I was...
Well, that's pretty soon since you moved to Melbourne, though. 14 years ago. Yeah,
2008, I moved here, so it's about 16 years.
Yeah.
Shortly after I moved here.
So you're doing music in a capacity that you can still make money regularly, doing it in that youth work sort of capacity.
Yeah. So touring and having the royalties from the party at my place still coming in, still to this day.
You just get an APRA check every now and then.
Yeah, but it's not enough to sustain life.
Hurt.
It doesn't hurt. It's a nice gift, you know.
Yeah.
But doing the youth work is something that I've just naturally done. And I thought, rather than doing once or twice a week, I could do once or twice a day. The sessions go for an hour to 2 hours maximum. So why not just send out these emails, connect? And then I found myself working in marginalized communities or kids that are at risk or trauma affected. And that's when what I said earlier about minding my language, because probably up until that point, I didn't really, I was out for a laugh, I'm trying to be clever with my raps, trying to be technical with my raps, trying to impress people. And then I thought, that's more ego than anything else. So when I really started looking at myself and reflecting, I started thinking, what can these kids take from me? And probably a couple of years after that, when I got really serious about it, was in 2012 when I had my near-death experience. That was a big shift in consciousness, in thought, in what I'm doing here on the planet, and how my energy is received, and my intention, and versus what's perceived and what's taken from it. So that's been a journey as well.
But what happened? What happened with that? So you had a cardiac arrest type scenario. How did that happen?
All right. So 2012, I just released another album, and I independently toured it around the country. So the country, but I was in the Gold Coast and I was out in Perth. I was everywhere around Australia promoting this thing. And when I'm not a big drinker, and at the time I've been quite naive with drugs and never even been a big smoker or anything. So when I got to every gig, you have a rider, and a rider is drinks or food or whatever you want. Like, they treat you like you're the god for the night, whatever you want, your wish is my command. And I started getting savvy to it, because at first I was like, a couple of beers is fine, and then I'm like, actually, these guys will get me a full bottle of vodka or a bottle of rum or whiskey or whatever I ask for, they'll get it.
That's almost easier for them because they just plonk the bottle in there rather than pull up. Yeah.
So every tour, I would get a new bottle of something, and I had this idea in my head: I'm going to take all these bottles home. I'm going to have a house party when I get home. So that's what I did. That's exactly what I did. I went on tour, I collected all this liquor, and then it was coming up to my birthday. I invited everyone from the music scene in Melbourne. So we had like 30 people, and they were mainly artists that all just came to my house. I said, there's a party at my place for real this time. It's a real party at my place. And it was that night. It was my 33rd birthday. On that day, people came round. We were having a few drinks and whatever. And then someone said, hey, Mots, come to the bedroom. I'll got you a little sneaky treat, Racked up some powder. I was like, what is it? Don't worry about what it is. Just take it, bro. Just take it. It's fresh from Africa. I'm like, what? So I had this line. And started like getting a bit dizzy, and I was fighting it, trying not to succumb to whatever it was. And I still didn't. I thought it might have been cocaine. And I was like, I don't know. I have nothing to reference it to, nothing to compare it to. Within 15 minutes, I said, I don't feel well, and I can't see, like, from where you are to here. People are saying, take a photo, take a photo. I'm like, who even is it? It's very blurred. Like, I couldn't see. I said, I'm going to go to bed. And everyone's like, you can't go to bed. It's your birthday. Don't be a lightweight. And they know me as being a lightweight anyway. I don't really do much. But I said, I really need to lie down. And anyway, I'll lay down. And then before long, started foaming at the mouth, started convulsing, started shaking, and then just drifted off. And then my heart stopped, my breath stopped, everything. Yeah, it's pretty much.
What was it, ketamine or something?
I'm still not 100% sure. But when the paramedics brought me around, they gave me something called Narcan, which reduces the effects of opiates. So it could have been.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did you confront the person?
Eventually, but we never. I didn't want to condemn him or make him feel any more guilt or shame, because I knew that's what he was feeling anyway. So we never got to the bottom of what it actually was, still to this day.
Yeah. And maybe he was told it was something else. Who knows?
Yeah. And a couple of people had it. He didn't just give it to me because there was conspiracies at the time because I was dating his ex-girl and people were like, he's trying to take you out of the picture, bro. How the fuck can he do that? You know, let's go and bash that guy. Let's retaliate. I'm like, no. After I had that experience, as scary as it sounds, it was the most profound, life-changing experience that I could ever have, you know. It's really become a big, massive part of my life.
So that's like a big bookmark in your life. There's before that and after.
Yeah. So before that, I would say I was very silly and egotistical, playful, showing off. You know, I'm a rapper and I can do this. And there was times where I'd take my shirt off on the stage and just it's embarrassing thinking back to it. After that, it was like, this is serious. Everything I'm doing has an impact. And
we can die, but also I learned that when you die, there's something eternal there as well. There's something. I grew up in a Catholic school and I never believed in God. I never believed in Jesus. I thought it was all bullshit in the Bible and everything. And I wouldn't say I know that's the truth, but I know now that there is something else. Yeah.
At least I know that it just doesn't end and you go, that's it. There's a continuation.
I've gone down a bit of a rabbit hole in the last few weeks of like listening to people talk about near-death experiences and that sort of thing. It's super interesting. And a lot of people say very similar stuff that, you know, when you get to that stage, they take you, they sort of show you things and then they say it's not your time or whatever. But everyone seems to say that they feel this overwhelming sense of love and just happiness and, you know.
Man.
You went through all that sort of stuff?
All that, yeah. Like my body was in my unit and my friend had kicked everyone out and said, look, he's not well. Everyone's got to go. Clear the party. This is it. Party's over. Everyone get out. And she was trying to call the guy who gave me the stuff. Like, what have you given him? What is this? And she's calling the ambulance. Like, he's not breathing. His heart, he's not got a pulse. He's dead, basically. So she was panicking. Fire truck picked up the call because they must all be on the same network.
Whoever's the closest.
Yeah. Fire truck came, cut my T-shirt off. They said, it's not working. She's following instructions, trying to resuscitate me, doing CPR and everything. But because I'm on my bed, the whole bed's just bouncing. So I'm not feeling the benefit of it. So they, first of all, dragged me off the bed, put me on the floor, take my T-shirt off, start hammering my chest, trying to get me going. They say, no, we've lost him. I was out for 20 minutes, like without a pulse or breath. That should have caused some brain damage, you know. Eventually, the paramedics came and they gave me the injection for Narcan. They put tubes up my nose, pumped oxygen into me, and finally resuscitated me. I had no idea what was happening because I was in heaven. I was in
euphoric sort of stuff.
I was in bliss, yeah. So even though my body was dead, I was still aware of something completely different. I knew that I'd died and I was completely okay with it. I was like, oh shit, something serious happened. This is what I'm thinking. I'm dead. And then I got upset. I'm like, Mom, no, my mum's not going to be cool with this. That's what brought me back. I'm like, I've got to come back. And it wasn't somebody saying, do you want to come back? Or it's not your time yet. It was all, what do you call it? Like psychic, like telepathic.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of stuff going on, but it was my mum and telling this story now. It was like, I've got to tell everybody. This is not the end. So, I mean, the story's much bigger than that. I'm just giving you the tidbits, you know.
You can go deep if you want to, man. It's up to you. I get really interested about this sort of stuff. So, you said you could go deep on this sort of near-death stuff, but where do you like? You said there's more to the story.
Yeah.
This is where it's getting interesting.
So I've actually given talks with Melbourne Theosophical Society and other spiritual groups on this because it really opened my eyes to a new dimension. I can tell you about the whole journey.
I'll listen.
Yeah. All right. So as far as I was aware in my physical body, I just drifted asleep. You know, I could hear people. I was on my bed. So this is going back a little bit before I fully lost consciousness. Hear people knocking on the door. What's going on in there? Is he coming out? Like, come on, Motley, party. Stop being a bitch. Stop being lightweight, whatever. Go. It felt like I was really out of it. Like, you guys party. There's liquor in there. You have a good time. I felt like I was peaceful. I was drifting away. I didn't think I was dying. I didn't think, oh shit, something, I just thought I'm peaceful, tranquil. I might have a nap and then I might wake up at 1 a.m. and then be ready again. But then as soon as I disappeared, I entered this white space, just brilliant white all around me. And I didn't have my body anymore. I was just awareness. I was just thought. And I could see 360 down, back, wherever I put my focus, I can see that, but it was just all white. And it's hard to describe because it's not like lights. You don't feel blinded by any lights, and it's not like a mist or a cloud. There's no edges, there's no walls. It's just a vast whiteness. That's all I can explain it as. Infinite. But it feels like it's a space, like I can move around in this whiteness. Even though there's no markers to tell you you're moving, you feel like you could move in this space. But I was very still and very present and just like, where am I right now? And I still had thoughts like, where am I right now? And then in a bit of a distance to my right, behind me, so I didn't look. It felt like I was being sneaky and I was listening in. I thought, if I turn around, they'll know that I'm listening. So I'm just going to face this way, but listen that way. And I heard 2 voices. And it felt like a parent or an older or wiser voice. And then some smaller voice. Or it was a big and a little. That's the only way I can describe it. And it was, how was it? It was the same. It's always nothing new, nothing. What do you mean? Every time you go somewhere, you bring something back. Nah, I never brought anything back, you didn't notice anything, or, any trip you go, any holiday, you bring a souvenir or you bring something back. No, didn't really. Yeah, what did you think? It's just the same old. It's just what it always is. It's nothing really changed. It's just. Well, did you not see the balance? Balance? What do you mean the balance? The balance. That's what you went. That's what you was gonna go and see. The balance. Did you not see it? No, I never saw that. Without north, there's no south. Without masculine, there's no feminine. Without positive, there's no negative. Without dark, there's no light. Without planets, there's no stars. I started getting all this in my consciousness, just hyper speed of every single thing that's balanced in the universe. It's all balanced, perfectly balanced. Oh, I never saw that. Well, you gotta go and see the balance. That was the whole point. It was this thing about balance.
It's almost like that's the meaning of life.
For me, at that time, I wouldn't say that's the meaning for everybody.
Okay.
Now, with my awareness now, took me a long time to get where I am because this happened in 2012. Now we're in 2025. So it's been 13 years of discovering and researching and being on this, whoa, what was that? Like trying to research, read books, watch documentaries. Now I believe that every soul incarnates into a body with their own specific purpose. So mine at that, well, I didn't even think it was mine. I thought these two were two randoms at the time, but now I believe that was either God or my higher self or my spiritual guides or whatever.
Your future self.
Future self as well. talking to my present small egoic personality, and reminding me what it is you set off to achieve and what you tried to discover and learn on this journey of Joe School. I call it Joe School. You're on Maloney School, and we're learning. So I can't compare to you. Why are you doing that? Because you're doing your own path. You're in a different class. We might be in the same school, but you're learning a whole different syllabus. So it's not for me to tell you. But at this time now, I feel like that was what I'm here to learn, you know.
And so you come back to consciousness straight after that, or there's more time spent in the white realm?
There's more time. So like I said, I thought I was eavesdropping and listening, and that's interesting. And I was receiving whatever they were talking about. I was receiving it in my consciousness really quickly as well, like. And then I thought, oh, I've got to go this way. I don't know why, but I can't just stay here listening to these guys all the time because I've got somewhere to go, like that urgency to go this way. So I start moving towards my front left, and these guys are on my rear right. So I'm directly opposite to where this voice is coming from. And it feels like I'm in an airport, and I've traveled so much between the UK and Australia. Every time we stop in Singapore or Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, and I'm not native to these places in Asia, but I'm pretty familiar with the airport. I know that I get off at this gate, and then I go through the terminal, and I go to this gate, and that's what it felt like to me. It felt like this familiar airport, and I've got to go to my gate now, because if I don't go, I'm going to miss it. Just a sense of urgency that I've got to go this way. So I went that way. Like I said, nothing's changing, but I'm just traveling through the white, and then I have a body again, but I'm still not back home in my bedroom. I'm in a different place, and it might be heaven or just another place, but I'm in a body. And it looks like Earth, and it just feels like I'm here with you right now. It feels as real as anything. And I'm driving down what feels like the Great Ocean Road. That's the only way I can. It's like a country road. There's no buildings, just trees on each side of the road. It's nighttime. There's stars in the sky. It's a beautiful night. I'm by myself driving, and I'm just driving along, and I think I see a shooting star, and I'm like, was that a shooting star? Maybe it was. I'm not sure. Caught it out the corner of my eye, but maybe I'm tripping. And I keep looking up at the stars now, just driving, and just like, the stars are beautiful tonight. And then I was like, oh, I actually saw a shooting star now. I saw it. And then I'm thinking, I wonder if the last one was a shooting star, or if I had a premonition that I was going to see a shooting star. And now, because I'm aware and I'm watching, I actually saw it. So then I was like really feeling pretty smug and like, I can't believe I saw a shooting star. That's amazing. And then I'm looking at the stars, and I see another one. I'm like, whoa, I've seen 2 shooting stars now. Maybe that first one was a shooting star. That means I've seen 3 shooting stars. And then I started getting worried. I'm like, it's not normal to see 3 shooting stars like that. And then all of a sudden, all the stars they all just start falling out the sky. And I'm like, this is scaring me, and it doesn't feel like a dream. It feels real. It feels like I'm really here driving, and the stars are falling out of the sky like rain just coming down. So I pull the car over, and I get out of the car, and I'm trying to see beyond the trees, and where are they falling? Are they landing on Earth, or are they, what is going on? All the stars have gone now. It's just pitch black. And then 3 of them, from wherever they came from, 3 stars just come zoom, zoom, zoom. And there's 3 in a triangle formation above my head, and I'm thinking, get back in the car, drive the fuck away. Like, I'm scared. I'm really scared. And they're just like these orbs in a triangle just circling around me. And then I think, if I get in my car and drive away, there's no way I can outrun these things. They just came from light years away, and they just came here in a flash. And I'm terrified. I'm literally like...
So you go from calm and chill to petrified.
Yeah. And I don't think I'm dead at this point. I had a feeling in the white thing, but when I came into this thing, it was like I'd already come back into my body, but it was in a dream kind of state. That's the only way I can, but it felt very real. And then I remember surrendering to these things. I said telepathically, look, I know that I can't escape. You know that you've got me in checkmate. Just whatever you do to me, just be gentle with me, please. Just be gentle. That's all I'm asking. I'm yours. You got me. Just go easy on me, okay? That's what I said. And then at that point, they started like sparkling off. Each orb was, you know, when you see somebody welding, bzzz, and there's all sparks flying off. There was sparks coming off each of these orbs, and the light was hitting me. I could feel it, and every time it hit me, it was like a little melody. It was blink, 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 and it was melting into my neck and my shoulders and my chest, and it was raining this light on me, and I just fell back and started levitating up into the sky, and they were getting closer and closer, and they were singing like angels. Like one of them was like, ooh, and the other one was, ooh, and the other one was bling, 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 bling. And they were just making this really beautiful, angelic music as they were swirling around, and they were throbbing and getting closer together. And I was raising up to them as well. And we all just merged into each other. And then it was like my body, it was like I just came out of my body, and I just felt really light. And then I knew, this is what it's like to be dead. It was an instant knowing I'm dead, but I feel so good. I feel so light. I feel like all the worries of the world have just dripped off me. I feel like and I felt like a champion. I felt like I won life. I won this game of life. I did everything perfect. I nailed it. And it was like praise, and you were so good. You were so amazing. I felt so loved. And felt like I was ejaculating. I was, that's amazing. I was like, it was absolutely breathtakingly, no words can describe the level of joy and ecstatic and just amazing. Just like
euphoria.
Complete euphoria. Like complete. There's no other words. That it's just the best feeling ever. You've won the lottery. You did everything perfect. You was the best in class. You won the race. You did everything was perfect. You just so much love for me, you know. And that's when I said I was like, I accept it. I accept that I'm dead. And then I started crying. I got really emotional. I'm like, my mum is not going to be happy with this. She's not going to be happy that I'm dead. She's not going to understand. She's never going to integrate it. She's never going to get over it. And it was really sad for me. I'm like, because me and my mum are really close. We always have been. And I'm like, I wish she was here. I wish my mum was here. I wish she was dead with me right now so she could see how beautiful it is. She's not going to know. And then I was like, I wish my friends were here as well. Everyone's so scared of death, scared to live, scared to put the wrong foot forward, scared. Everyone's so hesitant, and we're scared of the police in case they do this, or we're scared of villains in case they shoot us, or we're just scared. And there's nothing to be scared of, nothing at all. We've got it so twisted. It's the absolute opposite of what the fear of death is. It's not the end. It's a beautiful thing. And then I said, I'm going to go back. I'm going to tell my mum. I'm going to tell everybody. And then that's when I woke up, and I was actually back in my unit, and had the ambulance paramedics around me, and I was freezing because my body had lost all its body heat, and my lips were purple, and I was stiff, and I was just shaking.
Were they stunned when you came back?
My memory of coming back is very... There's just I just remember bright lights in my face, like I don't know what it was, but I was near the front door, and it was in May or end of May, June, so it was quite cold in Melbourne, and I just remember just shivering violently, my whole legs and everything was just. And they said, "Do you want to come to hospital? We need to get your permission to take you." And I'm like, yeah, like, yeah, I think you need to take me, So
Was there a sense of relief that you were back in your physical body, or was there a sense of I wanted to be back where that beautiful place was?
there was a bit of both, I wanted to come back. That's what I said. I'm gonna come back, and I gotta tell my mom. I've got to tell my friends. So I made that choice to come back. But at the
Don't
same
be
time,
scared of death.
yeah. But at the same time, it was not comfortable coming back, And I had bruises all up on my chest and on my back from where they'd been So I was in pain coming back, but I didn't really regret it. It was just a lot of confusion for the next couple of weeks. I had to go to hospital. They said, don't fall asleep again. I had some friends there with me, just keeping an eye on me all night. And then for the next few days, I was just zoned out. I would just be like looking into space and then being like, oh yeah, we're having a conversation, but my head's not here. My head's thinking, what the fuck was that? Like, I actually thought maybe I'm still dead. Maybe I'm a ghost now. And I don't know if I'm dead or alive anymore. What's the difference? Like,
did you start to do some research into other people that have been through it? That's what I would have done, yeah.
It didn't come straight away because there was a part of me that was still in disbelief. Because like I said earlier, I didn't believe in God and I didn't believe in religion. And if anybody else would have told me this story, I would have been like, oh, wacko, like people who believe in fairies and ghosts and spirits and strange things that I've never seen. I was very scientific. What I can see and touch and feel, that's what I believe, and anything else is woo-woo. So it broke my reality, and I was still trying to come to grips with that was real,
Did you feel an instant sense of spirituality afterwards, knowing that there is something else there? Like, did it change your beliefs instantly?
I would say I still had a bit of doubts. I didn't believe my own self. That's how crazy it was. Like, it was so far out that I was like, maybe it was just a dream, or maybe it was that powder that guy gave me. Maybe it was just, I was trying to rationalize it into my normal sense. And it was only a few months later, one of my friends invited me to the Melbourne Arts Centre. He said, look, there's a show on, it's called Dead Symphony. He said, I think you might enjoy it. I've got 2 free tickets for you. Just check it out. So I went to see this show called The Dead Symphony, and that's what really brought it home for me. So basically, this lady, she's from Australia. I can't remember her name now. That's a shame. But she'd gone around the world researching near-death experiences. And people always talk about a light and coming into the light, or it's like a tunnel and the light's getting brighter. And I had that in my own way when I said these lights were around me and I was coming into this light. And then like I said at the start, I was surrounded by light. So light is a big part of it. But what she found on her research was that the last physical sense that we have is auditory. We hear things. Beyond the light and beyond anything else, we hear things. So she went around researching what is it that you hear when you die or when you're in that near-death experience. And they said, we can't really put it into English language because there's no words for the beauty or to describe it. It's like, how do you describe what purple fizz sounds like, or what, this really unique sounds that we've never heard before. So she'd researched a whole bunch of people and she'd made this orchestral, maybe there's a 5 or 6 piece orchestra. And that's what the Dead Symphony was. It was to recreate the sounds that you hear when you die. So I went down with my friend. It was in the basement of the art center, so it wasn't even in the theater. It was underground in the rehearsal space. So it was very similar to this kind of environment. It doesn't look like a stage, or they put chairs in the round. So there was a performance area, not a stage, but a performance area in the middle of the basement, and then chairs all around it. And then they turned the lights off, so it was just pitch dark. Like, you couldn't barely see your friend next to you. And then they had these fluorescent tube lights, but standing up from the floor, just lines in the circle. And the band was in the middle of the circle. So it's pitch dark. We're all sitting there waiting for it to start. And then these lights start flickering in the circle. And then they go around this circle and around that circle. And then there's a vocalist in the middle. This beautiful lady had this angelic voice. She starts singing, ooh. And then this guy's got the mallets, bling, 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 bling. And I was like, instantly, it was the lights in the circle. And it was the bling, 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 bling. And they just recreated it exactly the same that I'd experienced, but they were doing it live.
Crazy.
I just started crying. I just had tears streaming down my face. The performance went for about half an hour. I was just crying the whole way through it. That's when I knew I either had a really vivid premonition, like I'm going to see this in real life, or they've somehow tapped into what it is, what you hear when you die. Either way was validation for me.
For sure. And had you told people about that experience? Had you verbalized your near-death experience before that? Not to too many people?
Not to too many people, but my friend that I was with, I told him, I was like, this is exactly what it's like. This is like, and he could see me just crying, you know? I was like, I can't believe how accurate they've got it. So I went to the band afterwards and I'm like, you don't know how much this means to me, you know? This is really validated something that happened a few months ago for me, and it's made it real. And my friend was like, you should look into that a bit more. So that's exactly what I did that night. I went home straight after the performance. I went to Google and I typed into Google my whole story, what I told you about being in a white airport and hearing voices and knowing that I had to go. I just put everything in Google. It wasn't just one or two words. It was a full story in the Google search, and I hit send. And then my story came back to me, but from an American person. They'd had the almost identical experience, but instead of calling it an airport, they called it a portal because it's the American language. They put their own. Yeah. I was in a portal, a white portal, and I had to go down there, you know. And I read that it was a hypnotherapist that had all these patients, and he'd compiled a book. His name's Michael Newton, Dr. Michael Newton. He'd compiled everybody's experience, and one of the person's experience was a reflection of mine. So after that, I was like, something paranormal, something metaphysical, something out of this world, undescribable, something's really at play here. That's when I started believing it and being like, what else can I find, you know?
Do you find an online community of other people? Do you get to that extent?
Yeah, there's definitely communities, but I was, and still am, somewhat of an introvert. On stage, I shine, but off stage, I keep myself to myself, and I'm still figuring it out. And almost that imposter thing came up again, you know, like these guys are valid, but I'm not sure if mine's really the same as theirs, and I'm still stepping into it. So I just watched a bunch of YouTube videos. There's this lady called PMH Atwater. She's an old lady. She lost her life 3 times in the 70s and had these near-death experiences. She was describing what happens after a near-death experience. It changes the neural connections in your brain. So you are literally physically changed. You think differently. Your family starts being a bit distant from you. Your friends, you get a new community. You get a new way of thinking, a new way of living. Everything she was describing, I was living through. And then it got me onto other people. I think it's Eben Alexander. He's a neurosurgeon, and he had a disease in his brain that started rotting his brain, and he's full-on scientist about the brain and neural connections. And then he had a near-death experience, and he was like, consciousness is not formed in the brain. We think that's where it's formed, but consciousness is something that we inherently have, and the brain is more of a computer computing the senses, the sight, the smell, the touch, the sound, to make sense of the consciousness. So when I started looking down the rabbit hole, it goes really deep, and everyone's got their own experiences, being in a coma or having died and come back, drowning. When I started speaking about it more, I was asked to be part of a theatrical piece. Can't remember what it's called now. Damn, my memory fails me. But there was this theater piece that was being made in Geelong, and they wanted people with near-death experiences to come and inform the theater piece so they could get it accurate. And that was my first introduction to other people that had have this experience. I met this one lady that had been struck by lightning like twice.
Wow.
Once in a bedroom, and it came through the window and struck her in a bedroom. And once when she was driving in a car, and it's like the lightning found her. And other people that have had near-death experiences. So it really validated me, and I was like, maybe I'm a weirdo, but maybe that's cool as well. I never really wanted to be normal anyway. I've always been different. So.
So how would you describe yourself now after all that? Would you say you're spiritual, you're religious, or you just believe in a greater something after death?
I think I would say I'm definitely more into my spirituality. You know, I rock the stones, the crystals, the Tibetan, the mantras for compassion. I know now that when you leave this realm, people talk about Judgment Day, or you get judged by God, or you might go to heaven or hell. I don't really believe that there's a place that you get sent. I do believe that you get to review your impact, and you judge yourself, and you say, I know I did something pretty shitty then. And then you actually get to experience it from that other person's perspective on how it had an impact on them. And you get to decide, do I want to live this whole life again, or do I want to live a new life, and what lessons am I going to incorporate into the next one? So I believe in reincarnation. Mm-hmm. In fact, I believe that all the lives that I've lived have all already happened. And I believe that I can choose next time to be Maloney, or I can be anyone. I can incarnate as like I'm you now, but in a different time. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah. So that's getting real deep. So this realm, this earth realm, is just where we are to learn lessons to take to the next life.
And the next life has already happened, and the previous life's already happened. It's just like a program on a TV. Netflix is there all the time, but you tune into one of them now. Doesn't mean the others are past or future. They're still there, mm-hmm. but you can tune into the other one. You come back out of it, and you go back in, and it's all there already. Mm-hmm. But we tune in the moment
simultaneously.
Yeah. Already happened.
So we're just experiencing it in different times, but that is all at the same time.
It's like a vinyl record. Nothing's happening on the vinyl record. There's no past but you can pick up the needle and you can drop it in the middle, and that's happening now. You put it to the beginning, that's happening now. Nothing. There's no linear time. Do you know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, but it sounds like everybody that I haven't met too many people besides yourself that have been through all that, but from what I can gather from researching it myself, it sounds like everybody is changed mostly for the better after that happens. Everyone seems to be a lot more confident with themselves and more sure about just living their life in a way that they're more at peace.
100%. And with integrity and authenticity, I think because I may have said it before, I've struggled with being a people pleaser, probably due to childhood traumas, not being allowed to be what I want to be, otherwise I'll be punished. Now I'm more aware of that rather than that being a subconscious program that was running my life. Now I can see, that's that scared Joe coming up who wants to keep the peace and doesn't want to upset people. But it's okay to say no sometimes, and it doesn't mean you're hurting anyone or being rude or anything. It just means you're being more authentic. So there's definitely that level of confidence and authenticity that comes with it.
Yeah. And I guess that's also similar to older people that you see in society. People like, oh, they're old and they're rude and they're grumpy. Maybe they're not. They've lived their life to the point that they just don't want to do stuff they don't want to do.
Man, it comes down to the very small things like maybe it was T that mentioned you're always wearing the Birkies, eh? Because everyone's got fly kicks, Jordans or Nike Airs or whatever, and I rock these sandals, and I'm like, yeah, got my sandals. I'm comfortable. I chase a different lifestyle now. I love learning about living off the land and being off grid and self-sustainable and not chasing dollars, but chasing experiences and chasing joy. It's a whole different way of living,
Puts things in a different perspective.
100%.
So then after, and thanks for sharing all that, man, because that's a lot, and I appreciate it. After that, on your journey, is it changed the way that you think about music and what you're doing creatively?
100%. It's infiltrated my very core being. So anything I do and everything I create comes with that disclaimer or that little lens. So I said about supporting kids in schools and stuff. I try subtly because I don't want to preach and push it on people, but I try to bring the best out of people, and stay away from. We can all tell our stories, that's cool, but learn from your story as well. Like I did a lot of workshops in juvie and these kids have done some pretty heinous things. Like they're not in there for shoplifting. Like I got done for shoplifting when I was a kid, but these guys are in there for maybe sexual assault or maybe armed robbery or big boy crimes, even though they're only kids, And that's part of the life. That's part of the story. I don't sweep it under the rug, but don't glamorize it and tell the truth about what that. It's not things. These situations are because. I don't name names, but the dad told him, "Look, I'll go to prison if I do this. So you take the knife, you go in there, you do this, and tell him to give us the money because you're only a kid, so you won't go to prison." And they get pushed, and it's scary, and they're not being a sick cunt. They're being told what to do by the dad, or they're getting on H when they're only 12, or they're getting like, let's be real about it. Let's pull the glorification back and say, yeah, I was scared, and yeah, I did do this, and like, so that other people can learn from our stories as well, and
I think that's super important, and I speak to so many different people on this show that have done things that they're not proud of, or we just talk about things like that, and that stuff needs to be talked about and needs to be spoken about. But people need to learn from it. That's the biggest thing. You can do stuff in your life that you're not proud of or talk about things that happen, but as long as we learn from that shit and not glorify it, that's the most important thing, I think.
100%. And some of the songs that I performed at the start, like the Emancipation of the Self, even the title, it's like no one's here to free you. There's no savior coming. There's no return of Jesus, if that's what you believe in, or it's you. You've got to go deep within yourself to free yourself from mental slavery, financial slavery, stereotypical racism slavery. If someone says something, a racial slur, it's my choice if I get offended by that or if I just think, well, this guy's a small-minded person who doesn't know any better. Like,
he's not as advanced on his journey.
Yeah.
So
doesn't see what I see. Forgive them, Father, for they do not know how, that whole thing is really that people are very ignorant and in their own bubble, and that's okay because they haven't. I've been privileged enough to step out of my body, come and see it from a bird's eye view, and see the bigger picture, and then come back. But not everyone has had that, so be patient,
Yeah, it's almost like everyone sort of should go through that at some stage so they can better themselves for the future.
And I say that in one of my songs as well. I say dying is something you should try, and it maybe sounds like I'm telling people to self-harm or commit suicide, but I'm not. I'm just saying, if you all had the benefit of remembering, because you all have died before anyway, but if you had the benefit of remembering, like I've been given this privilege, then you would probably live your life in a very different way.
What do you think about dreaming then? Do you think dreaming we're tapping into a different realm, or that's just our conscious self reflecting? Or
I used to think that it was just our subconscious thoughts coming out. Now I do believe that we leave the body and we go to another realm. It might be the same realm as the death realm or another dimension, but I do believe that we go there to learn things as well, and then we can bring it back and implement it here as well.
yeah, I'm starting to lean down more that path myself. But yeah, it sounds really crazy. Like you think about that stuff. If someone said that to me like 20 years ago, I'd be like, you just go to sleep. But now I'm starting to think more like that sort of stuff. I get down some rabbit holes when I'm online and I'm starting to lean more into that sort of thing.
Yeah, man. There's definitely more to us than we've been led to believe. And that was one of the main things that I took from it. Like, if I can die, my body can shut down for 20 minutes, no heartbeat, no breath, foaming at the mouth, nothing happening. But I can experience all this other stuff, and then I can actually come back and tell people about it. It's like I didn't even go to another planet or another destination. I went to a different dimension that's not even physical, and I came back. So if that's possible, what you can't tell me that that's impossible. Something's impossible. Nothing's impossible anymore. It means everything possibly could happen, you know?
Yeah. And I think it also means that our minds are a lot more powerful than we give them credit for. We can sort of, whether you think about remote viewing or you think about you can go to a different dimension in your head if you try hard enough.
That's it. We don't need our physical senses. I can close my eyes now and I can vision my mum, or I can vision a rose or a traffic light, and I don't need eyes to see that. And that led me to the power of our thoughts as well. Like, we are manifesting this reality. We're manifesting our downfalls and our wins and our losses and our community. Everything starts with a thought. This table started with a thought. The microphone, this bottle of water, everything that we can think of was a thought first before it manifests, including our life path.
Man, I love this stuff. It's deep. We've got to get back on the track. The music, though, man. We've got to get back on the music stuff. Or we're going to talk about your journey. So after 2012, a lot has changed. You are thinking about things a lot more spiritually. You're thinking about things a lot differently. You're making music differently. You're doing more community-based stuff, I'm guessing. Are you still connecting with the old hip-hop heads? Are you just making music for yourself?
So there's something that I missed out. If we go back to 2010, I was becoming disillusioned with music anyway. Like, I was starting to think, there was a guy on Triple J. I forget everyone's name because I'm really not in that industry so much
DJ
anymore.
Like
no, the head of
Kingsmill.
Richard, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember sending him a song, and this has happened a lot of times as well. People say, hey, it's good, but it's not like the Bliss N Eso song, or it's not like this other song you had. And if you got any more singles, anything catchy, or something that's going to get them on the dance floor or the festival crowd.
At least he replied to you. A lot of people would have just ended in the bin.
That's true. But I felt at the time like, what am I doing? I'm making music for Richard. I'm in my bedroom.
Some dick.
Yeah. Rick. Yeah. The Dick is Rick. It's a shortcut for Rick anyway. But like, it really got me thinking, I'm not even from Australia, and I'm in Australia trying to talk to the Australian market and trying to cater. And I thought, if this was in the UK, I'd be probably doing music different and maybe a little bit more authentic. Maybe I'd be a bit more connected with my own roots. And I just thought, I need to take a break. I don't feel excited about making music for somebody else. Yeah. It got to that point where I was chasing something. So I went on a trip. I saved my ass off and went on a pretty much 11 months, so pretty much a year. And I did a round the world trip from Japan, China, India, Africa, a little bit of Europe, South America. I literally did a line around the world. And it wasn't until I got to Brazil that I noticed the culture over there and I saw a cipher on the street. People were rapping, and it was all Portuguese, so I couldn't understand it. But I felt the passion, and I thought, these guys don't give a fuck about Richard Kingsmill. They don't. They're doing it because they love doing it, and that's what I started doing it for. You know, it really re-energized me. So when I got back from that trip, I thought I'm going to give my all into this one last project, and that's when I did the Dope Squad album. It was Deal or No Deal is the name of the album. I thought, I'm not chasing radio play, I'm not chasing commercial success. I'm doing this album because with a deal or without a deal, this is what I wanted to always do, you know? Mm-hmm. And on that record, I reached out to friends, I reached out to inspirations. So I had Ra Digger from Busta Rhymes Flip Mode Squad, had Camp Low, had Sean Price, Rook and Rock, MOP, all the people that I loved growing up. I got them features on my Deal or No Deal album, produced some of the best beats that I've made. And that was like, if I leave the rap game, this is what I was intending to do.
This is my legacy.
Yeah. And it made a little splash. It didn't really. It wasn't massive, but that was never the intention. You know, it was always to just be like, this is what I really wanted to do at this time. So that was around 2011, 2012, around about that time that I had my experience. So after that, like I said, I was like, I've done what I need to do in music. I didn't really feel like I wanted to do anything else. And then it was only when I went to Alice Springs or Uluru, I went to Ayers Rock, and in 2013, 2014, and I just got hit with inspiration just being out there. I'm like, I'm going to do a concept album. I'm going to do this story album that's linear, that you listen to track one and it leads straight into track two, and actually it's going to be a choose your own adventure, so you don't even have to go to track two. You can choose which way you go, and the story still continues no matter which. And I started getting all these ideas of this amazing project, and it got me writing again. It got me making music again. It's just like, I'm not just making singles. I'm not making an album. I'm making a epic, like a movie in audio form, you know. Yeah. And I started working on that for the next 2 years, and then so it already changed the way I was thinking about music. If you think about it like that, like I was done with conventional music. It was boring for me. I'd done everything I needed to do, and I wasn't feeling challenged. So this project kind of gave me a new wind, more energy. But every now and again, I thought, I'm too lost in this world. It's like writing a novel, and I was believing the characters, and I was in this other realm, and what would this character say to this character?
So you're not writing it from the first person perspective.
Yeah, the main character was experiencing it, but there was other characters involved in the storyline. So I would write it from, I would write a response, and I would write what happens. I would set the whole scene. It had sound effects in there. It was a full epic story. But every now and again, I had to shake off and say, I just want to write a normal song. I'm going crazy in this world. I just want to write whatever comes out, just allow it to come out. And that's the first couple of songs that you played, the Emancipation of the Self and the Inspiring song. And then every now and again, I wrote another song. Before I knew it, I had 7 songs that weren't part of the Choose Your Own Adventure concept. They were 7 standalone songs. And when I reflected on them, they were all very spiritually deep. Like, there was no fun and no technical acrobats with the rhymes. It was just, I'm just telling you some straight facts. Mm-hmm. And they all related to my near-death experience in one way or another, subconsciously. Unintentionally. So I called the album When I Died. And one of the tracks is literally called When I Died. And it talks about everything we just spoke about, but I put it into a song. And the Inspiring song, I'm reflecting on what makes me me, what makes me make music. I'm talking about the neural connections in my brain and what I learned from the streets and the emancipation of the self. I'm talking about being free from our thoughts, free from money, free from racism, you know, everything in that. There's one called Wake Up, You Monkey. It's like, come on, everybody, we need to wake up. Like, you're all asleep. And I don't want to be a preacher, so I do it with a tongue in cheek. Like, wake up, you cheeky monkey. Come on, it's wake up time. Like, and what else is on there? There's salute the conditions permitting of life. So that's like one thing leads to another, you know? It's like just respect everything. Life gives life. You stay in your lane, let them do them. It was very spiritual album for me, you know, without calling it religious rap or Christian rap or spiritual rap. It's still bars and beats, but it's got some substance to it. So yeah, definitely had an impact on.
And that's the project you're most proud of to this day?
I would say so, because it's the one that still resonates with me. I recorded that in 2015, 2016, and it's been 10 years, and I felt like I reached a new peak with it. Like, the beats were dope. There's one that T was listening to called Just Where I'm At Now. And I come off the bat just rage, just but that's just where I'm at now. Like, I'm saying nothing does it for me anymore. I can't listen to the music that's on the shelf. Even some of the stuff I used to listen to, like, there's a lot of misogyny and pimping and gangster, and it's like the beats were dope, but now when I listen back, I'm like, I can't believe that was almost like a mantra just programmed into me and a whole generation, glorifying negative shit, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, but that's just where I'm at now. That's where I'm at. It's okay. This is where I am. I'm on a new evolutionary path, you know?
And we all mature and we all grow.
That's it, man. And it's sad when artists don't know what to do or don't know, because, like, I remember I was a huge fan of Eminem when he first dropped. Now when I listen to him, I have to take him as a comedian. Like, he's not being serious. He's just being silly and shock value and whatever. Like, but then as MCs grow or artists grow, it's like you want them to be the old one again. You want them to still be the old. And I guess it depends on the area or the direction they grow in, because some people can grow and become doper and doper. And there's people like Yazin Bey, Mos Def, that still authentic and still dope, and Black Thought, Roots, they still killing it. But then Exhibit just dropped something, Snoop Dogg just dropped something, Redman. These are all used to be my inspirations when I was a kid, and now I'm like, you're almost becoming a parody of yourself. It's like you're trying to hold on to some nostalgia, or it's not quite there.
It's hard for people to mature in a way that not alienate the original fan base and then progress to a place that they artistically want to be, you know?
And I felt that as well when I first did this When I Died album. I was like, this is so far removed from anything I've ever released before. I had that anxiety about releasing it. I'm like, people are not going to get it, or they're going to think I'm a preacher, or they're going to think I'm...
But if you're making it for yourself, who cares?
Exactly. That's what I had to go with in the end. I'm like, this is something I really believe in. This is something I'm really passionate about. And it's authentic. I'm not trying to achieve anything. I'm just doing it because of... And like I said, the whole process as well. Like, previous to this, I'd set out to make an album. I'd be like, I'm going to make an album, and I'm going to have X amount of tracks that have this vibe. I'm going to have X amount of tracks that are a bit more reflective or somber. Or I had a vision of the album and the ride of the album and the journey of the album. But with this one, it was just like, whatever comes out it's authentic at the time, you know. There's no big single. There's no club song, there's no R&B, it's just pure me.
And that reflects where you were in your journey, and you realize if you've got to be authentic, you got to make it for yourself, man. T's giving us a little wrap it up. No, he's not. No, he's not. Okay. I thought you were like, oh, we're going to wrap it up. Oh, okay. All right.
That's where I'm at now.
Yeah. So then we move forward, are you still connecting with any of the or any of like the Bliss N Eso dudes? Any of those dudes that you were sort of working with early days?
No. So there was a bit of a scene at that time, and like Bliss N Eso, 360, Pez, all that era of music. Like 360 came around to my house to record on a mixtape that I did, but now, ever since he had his success and went his way, I don't really speak with him. We never fell out, but
he's on his own spiritual journey.
Yeah, and that's cool. But Bliss N Eso in particular, we, after touring quite extensively, there was a few things that just didn't sit well with me. You know, they were quite controlling. So to get into a couple of minor details, because I've already spoken about it once before, a long time ago on the radio, and that was pretty much the big divide. Because I aired out my dirty laundry on air, live on air on House Triple J hip hop show. Yeah. And I think I was a bit angry and a bit, you know, that was obviously before my spiritual awakening, and I was just pissed off and wanted to vent. But now looking back, I think it was the control thing and the jealousy and envy that was happening. They got upset because I was selling Motley t-shirts. I was new to selling merch. I never had a merch stand before, and I was like, okay, I'll sell these tees for $25. And they were pissed off because theirs were $35. And they were like, but the reason why you have a queue is because yours are cheaper than ours. Like, you're selling yours for 25, we're selling ours for 35. Obviously, you're gonna, like, I was out selling them on merch, and I was like, if they want a Bliss N Eso tee, they'll pay the extra $10. Like, I'm the new kid on the block. This is my price. This is my merch. Like, so they full said, if you don't put yours to 35 to make it equal, then we're not going to allow you to sell your merch at all. And I'm like, that's some childish bullshit, you know? So I had to put my price to what they said, to 35 to make it equal. And I still outsold them on the merch. So they were pissed off at that. And then they said, Motley, you're getting the crowd too tired. You're wearing them out. You're coming out with all this big energy. You're stage diving. Everyone's got their hands in the air. When we come out, they're all tired. We're feeling a lull in the energy when we come out. Like, can you just turn it down a bit? And I'm like, but I'm being my authentic self. When I'm performing, I'm lost in a flow. Like, I'm not even thinking about, and I want to give my best performance, you know? I'm not going to come out and say, look, I'm usually at 100%, but I'm just going to give you 60 or 70%. Like, I can't do that, you know? Yeah. And then there was times where they didn't want to pay for me to come on part of the tour. So I'd done like half the tour or 3/4 of the tour. And they said, oh, we don't really have the budget to bring you out to Perth. So maybe you just skip that. And there was a few shady things. I said, I'll pay myself. I'll pay my own flights. I know I'll make it back in merch anyway because I'm killing it on this tour. And I had to really... We butted heads a lot. And then after that tour, they invited me to do, like, is it Big Day Out and a few festivals with them? Because people loved the Party at My Place track, and they wanted to see the Motley part. They froth for the Motley part. It's me, Motley. Didn't I tell you? Like, they all sing it. Like, I don't even have to sing half of the lyrics. And then they stopped paying me for appearances. They said, we're going to pay you in Bliss N Eso sneakers. And I'm like, I'm not even going to wear them, man. I'm like, what? It just, the whole thing started getting from bad to worse. And then in the end, I was like, you know what? This is not serving me anymore. From the original deal that I thought, you know, I'll produce some tracks for you. I'll appear on the album. We'll support each other.
I'll help you, you help me.
Yeah. And it was like, we got what we want now. We don't need you anymore. Kind of, I got that vibe from it. So I just gave them the big middle finger in the end. I thought, I'm not even chasing the same thing that you're chasing, you know. I just want to be on stage and enjoying myself, and you're making it uncomfortable and difficult and awkward, so I don't need that energy.
And is this before or after your experience, your near-death experience?
That was before my experience, yeah.
So have you reached out to them after that or anything to try and be like, put it at peace?
I've met Ism, the DJ.
Yeah.
He's always been cool. Even when that happened, shortly after, he was in Melbourne because I think he lived in Melbourne for a while. I'm not sure where he lives now, but I bumped into him and it was bro, you know. And then he remembered. Oh, you said that shit on Triple J. Oh, I hope nobody's watching because we can't bro down anymore in public, you know. It was an unwritten rule where he knew I was cool with him, and even Eso Max to some. You know, I never really fell out with Max. It was more Bliss. It was more Jono, and it is what it is, though. And to answer your question about rekindling, like, I never felt the need, you know? Like, I always thought that song came out 2005. So 2015, I had my experience by that time. It was a 10-year.
Decade.
Yeah. And I was like, look, if they reach out to me and they want to do a 10-year anniversary, I'm not going to be bitter about it. I'll do it very professionally. Maybe we can rekindle a friendship because part of my new awakening is I don't hold grudges. I know
That's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah, it's not something that I would want to harbor against anyone because I know that it's only affecting myself. Like if I'm pissed off with the next person who walks down the street, he doesn't even know that I'm pissed off with him. I'm carrying that. So I was open to it, but I think the damage was done and egos were hurt, you know. How dare he say that to us kings, you know? So it is what it is, you know. I don't hold anything bad against them anymore. I've grown out of it. And even still now, if they wanted to do another tour, or because I know that they still perform my song, but they either cut my verse out or they might get a guest feature to come in, and the fans want the original, you know. And I'd be keen, but it's not something I'm losing sleep over, you know.
But then is that sort of when you spoke to How and then you got him on the track as well? Is it around about that same sort of time that you aired the Dirty Laundry?
I'd already aired the Laundry before that, and How was cool with me. He was like, maybe it's good for ratings on the radio, a bit of controversy, a bit of, you know, bit of beef. And he, for whatever reason, never took sides. He was Sydney based, but he was all for what I was doing and supporting what I was doing. So some people got sucked into it. Like I feel that 360 may have been like, I have to choose a side. Like Bliss N Eso are my friends and they're very successful. Motley's kind of my friend and he's not really doing much at the moment. So I've got to show loyalty to my, you know, it became a little bit like that. There was a bit of a divide. People that I used to kick it with were like a bit worried about hanging out with me, but I just let the chips fall where they, you know, where they are. And it's funny because even the Dope Squad, I reached out to more MCs that are actually on there. There's 7 or 8 of us, but I'd reached out to Mantra, to Draft, to maybe a couple others. And just by the way of the universe, it was all the people of color that got back to me. I don't know why that is.
I didn't think of that until you mentioned it. Yeah, okay.
Enfa, Remy, Briggs,
1-6,
Sky High, either Islander, African, Indigenous.
Yeah.
They were all, we gonna stick fat with Motley, and everyone else either couldn't make it or whatever.
And you're not saying that's like, it might have been a coincidence.
Might have been a coincidence, and I was quietly happy that it happened, you know, because like I said at the beginning of the interview, I was trying to find my community. I was trying to find the black people. I was trying to, you know, and it's been a bit of a whitewashed industry. Even hip hop over here was all pretty one flavor, you know.
It's changing now.
It is changing now.
It is, and I think that is more just a. I can't speak for the whole fucking hip hop industry. I'm not in the industry, but I think that was just a representation of what was in the community. There was predominantly white people in the community, and that reflected in the music scene. Since then, the community's changed. It's a different landscape now.
The community's definitely grown, but there's always been, like, Enfa's been here for a time. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. He's not new to Australia, and Briggs has been around. Like, there's been Indigenous people, there's been Islanders. There's been people, but they just weren't getting the light for whatever reason. But the community has changed. You're right. There's been an influx of African migrants and Middle Eastern people, and there's more and more culture coming.
And they're influenced by different music.
That's true as well.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's the people that are coming here more recently are influenced by more global music and not just what they're hearing that fucking Kingsmill picked for them on the radio, which changes the landscape
That's
again.
true as well. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting the way it rolled out, eh?
Yeah. But that's, and I think that after you've gone through that 2012 thing, you realize it's not worth holding on to negativity. Just be positive, and that's the thing, man. Like, there's enough negative shit going around in the world.
Exactly.
Try and find the positive spin on it.
And that's my angle every time now, you know. Try not to put some ignorant shit out there. Try and make people think so they're entertained, they're loving it, but they're actually subconsciously downloading something, and they'll come away and think about it. I've had people cry at my shows now. People, it's not just like get your hands in the air and have a sick show. It's like when I performed at Legends last year, or 2023 now. Damn. I performed with a live band for the first time. I usually just have a DJ playing my beats that I've made, but I had a band learn my beats and recreate them live on stage. And even that was stepping out of my comfort zone, doing something a bit new. But the crowd, the response that I got was, this is not just a show. I'm learning something. You're teaching us while you're on stage. You know, it feels like I'm at church, but a dope church, or it feels like I'm in a workshop and learning. And you've elevated my own music game, because there's a lot of musicians in the audience as well. Some people said I cried. I had to leave. I couldn't contain the power and the emotion of what we all felt that day. That's where I'm at now. You know, that's like really reaching into people's souls and changing people's lives with the art that I create.
And hopefully you'll do that again on this Saturday. It's a good segue because you mentioned the Breaking Bread, but we've also got another gig coming up with Mono the Messenger this Saturday.
Yeah, I'm really pumped about that as well. I'd hoped that I'd have some new material to perform, and I might do one or two newies, but for the most part, it'll be the When I Died, because that's just where my heart's at and what still resonates with me. But I'm just proud of Mono. I'm looking at his poster there on the wall. Because like I said, I met that kid 14 years ago, and he claims that I taught him a lot. He was already talented when I met him.
You met him through the workshops?
Yeah, it was a school, an alternative school. And he was in and out of schools at the time. But when he saw that I was there, he was at my class every week without fail, gathering up the troops, saying, no, we've got to go to Motley's class, man. This is where it's at. And I would bring beats every session. We had a studio set up. I took my laptop and my microphone and really got them to focus on bars and structure and recording techniques and expressing themselves. And then I didn't see him for a couple of years, but then he started doing the dojo, and then he did other things. He's been a bit of a local legend by himself, and he's only still young. He's still in his 20s, so I'm like... Have
you shared the stage with him before?
He's invited me down to some of his events, but not in this capacity. I've never been like a support act on his show, you know?
There you go.
Yeah.
The teacher becomes the student. That's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I'm not sure, but I'm guessing potentially by the time this goes out, there isn't tickets left. But if there is tickets, T, what are we doing? Go to breakingbread.com.au. Yeah, we'll find them there.
breakingbread.com.au.
And you've obviously done multiple of these gigs before. It's good fun times.
Always fun being on stage, you know. And at this stage in my career and in my life, I don't go out hunting for shows or hunting for anything. I guess I'm lucky enough to have left a mark, you know. Through my journey, people still recognize me. They recognize my name. They recognize me from some of the earlier stuff or some of the stuff that I've talked about. And for example, Mono, like, he wanted me to be on the show. It's nice. It's nice to be wanted. It's nice to be asked. It's nice to be requested. It's nice to be invited. So yeah, like, I'm not out there still still got it, you know. But if I'm on stage, I'm having fun and I'm turning up 100% and making sure the crowd's enjoying themselves as well.
For sure.
But performing live has always been, well, people have always said it's a joy to see me perform because I just get lost in myself, and it's nice to hear me on a CD. It's nice to see me on a video, but if you see me live, it's an experience, you know. So and I love that. Ever since I started performing, I've always wanted to craft that so people, because I've seen weak performances before, and I'm like, I'd never want to have that opportunity just go to waste like that, and people are just talking and drinking. When I'm on stage, no one's talking, no one's drinking, everyone's fixated, and we're sharing a moment. And people are not even getting the phones out because the two in the moment, and that's what I love about it, you know, sharing that moment with people.
And that's what people could expect this Saturday.
100%, nothing
Stage
less.
diving? Is it going to be stage diving still? It's a small venue for stage diving.
Apparently the ceiling's too low, so I'll probably end up headbutting the ceiling if I try to jump off it. And yeah, I'll probably bust my back or something. I'm 45 years old now, so I don't really partake in the stage diving anymore. And, you know, I used to be out there signing titties and signing arses and signing bras, and all that shit's behind me now. But we still have fun, though, you know.
For sure. As we get close to wrapping it up, man, is there anyone you want to shout out or anything you want to tell us besides the Breaking Bread event that's coming up for Motley in 2025?
I've got a few projects on the burner, actually, because I've been pretty quiet. Had a lot of personal issues this last year, so I've been really reserved and really in my own head, in my own space.
Which is good, though. You need to do that.
Yeah. You need some life experience so you can express. It's all part of the recipe, you know. But I've got some friends in Sydney. We've got a collective called Dusty Company. Dusty is in old, company is in friends, just old friends. So Dusty Co. We're working on a collaborative album. So I can't give too much away at the minute because it's in its infancy. We've only recorded a couple of tracks.
Yep.
But I'm excited to be invited to be part of that. I'm producing the whole project start to finish.
Cool.
And I'm rapping on at least half of the songs. So that'll be out probably in the next few months. I'd say March, April at a push. I just started penning my own songs again. Being Human is one of the new ones. I've got a couple of songs that I'm working on that T was saying, you need to put an album together. And I'm like, well, I've already got 3 songs, so I've made a scratch on it, you know? Mm-hmm. And then maybe a tour, maybe. Wow. We just had a chat. So, I mean, I'm giving too much away too soon because it's just that we have ideas and then, you know, and then there's the concept album that I never stopped working on. And that's still coming as well. So there's a few projects that I'm working on, but I don't give myself a cutoff time or a date or a release date because I don't want to rush it for the sake of a date. Mm-hmm. I used to do that a lot, and it's good to be productive, but now I'm just like, I want it to be organic and natural and have more meaning than just the final date. So
it sounds like the right way to do it, man.
Yeah. We'll hopefully hold me to it. Hopefully some shit will be out before the end of this year anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah, you've mentioned 3 things, so if we just get one of them, that'd be good.
Yeah, man. Shout out to T, Breaking Bad. Shout out to Mono. Shout out to 3000 Podcast, of course. Thanks for having me.
No worries.
Shout out to the Get Down events. They're always looking out for me. Shout out to my mom and my family. Shout out to everybody, man. It's all peace and love from here, man.
Motley, man, it's been a great story and a good chat. Look forward to the event on Saturday. Get your tickets at breakingbread.com.au if they're still available. I appreciate you coming in, man.
Thanks for having me, bro. Really appreciate it.
Cheers.